24th, when new directions will be given. President William Ruto says that in the cabinet meeting at the Kisumu State Lodge, they received a report on the reforms in the sugar sector. Ruto said that the certificate of write-off of 117 billion shillings debt owed by Mumias, Chebali, Nzoia, Muhoroni and Sony sugar companies had been presented to the National Treasury.
Cabinet was briefed of the report that today the certificate from Parliament was submitted to the National Treasury for the ultimate write-off of 117 billion debts that have for a long time saddled the 5 sugar mills in this region. Finally, we now have all the debts behind those companies, and these companies are now poised for new investment and new transformation going into the future.
He also said that a new budget proposal will be presented in Parliament this week for the sugar millers to pay farmers their arrears.
In that same report that we received today, government will now be adjusting the budget. Hopefully by Friday this week or next week, we will be presenting to Parliament a new budget proposal that will make it possible for 1.7 billion shillings to be made available to these 5 mills to be able to pay farmer arrears that have been outstanding for as long as 4 or 5 years.
He further said that the sugar companies won't be privatized, but instead a leasing program will be released for them.
We'll set the stage for a leasing program that will see these factories and the mills and the nuclear estates being used to transform and to provide the mechanism for us to turn around these facilities. As I made a commitment that there will be no privatization of any part, and the land that was contributed by communities and by regions will continue to be land that will be for the communities under the county, and that this time round the program will also make it possible for communities using either counties or any other agreed framework to benefit from the lease of the facilities.
Governors have continued to plead with the national government to release 8 billion shillings meant for El Nino rain preparations across the counties. Led by Council of Governors Chairperson Health Committee Chair Muthomi Njuki, they said different counties have already set aside money in their budgets to deal with the rains.
We expect the money to flow to us so that we can be able to deal with the emergency in this level. We know that the national government through that contingency fund has money for dealing with it. Sisi tumesema hatutaki kurudia makosa ya COVID wakati tulinunua vitu mingi in anticipation. Sisi tunataka pesa ikae tayari for responding to emergency. We shall not buy blankets and food waiting for people to be moved, because if in case they're not moved, that goes to waste. Lakini tumesema our stockists, maduka ambayo zinaweka blanketi, inaweka chakula, inaweka hizo vitu zote,
the Met Department has announced that El Nino rains will begin next week up to December. Now, nominated Member of Parliament Sabina Chege has lost her position as the Deputy Minority Whip in the National Assembly. A case filed by Chege in a Kiambu court to challenge Azimio la Umoja's decision to remove her from the position was thrown out. Consequently, Embakasi West MP Mark Mwenje is said to be the new Deputy Minority Whip in the 13th Parliament. Jubilee Party has been in a protracted legal battle over leadership, with the Chege-led faction fighting the Uhuru-led wing to control the party and millions in the kitty. And Kimilili MP Didmas Baraza has asked the UDA National Executive Council to dismiss Acting Secretary General Cleophas Malala on claims he is an ODM mole. Baraza says Malala has continued to disrespect National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi by holding a series of meetings in Western Kenya aimed at inciting the people against the two.
I have evidence. I have been furnished by M-Pesa statements. I have been furnished by bank statement that indicates that this young man is receiving money from ODM sympathizers to wreck the Kenya Kwanza coalition from within. This is very evident if the statements that he has been making for the last 3 months is something to go by.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Oseto. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
The following takes place from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. every weekday on Spice FM.
Revenge is for children. It's for kids. When you grow up, you realize the best revenge you can take on somebody is to ignore them.
Now, I'm just new in politics. It is not everybody's cup of tea. That's why some people come in one term and that's it for them.
Political parties in this country do not have ideologies, whether luring or otherwise.
And that is the effect of corruption.
Any time an offense occurs anywhere in the country, it is the job of the Inspector General to look into it. Whether it's corruption, whether it's murder, whether it's petty, that is his job.
If we have chosen to be a corrupt nation, then we produce corrupt leaders. Everything then becomes chaotic that you cannot be able to change a nation.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
If you go out of this country and come back the same person, then you have a problem. Buy land, 1 million. Put it there for 5 years. What's the purpose?
It'll have increased in value.
No, that's the thing. That's darkness. That's an eclipse. You don't do that.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person or that all hustlers are poor. I've seen that conversation.
Tell us, who is a hustler?
Who's a hustler? Hustler is a person who is making a living through hard work.
Corruption in Kenya is a political accusation. The people who are actually corrupt are not pointed fingers at.
Kenya is not free. Kenya imeshikwa na mateka. It's under siege.
Have you seen that lodge on Nyeri Road? Very high fence. You can't even
Windows
sleep inside.
up near the ceiling.
Yes. And if you walk there at midnight, you see bats the size of cows.
And when it rains, it doesn't rain on that building.
Yes.
When you're at All Saints and it's raining, it doesn't rain on that building.
The things people will believe.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much, Eric, and it's good to be at the Situation Room.
Always a pleasure coming here. This is the most challenging interview panel in Kenya. You guys are very well informed, and as you can see, Charles today very philosophical.
To be poor in this country is the greatest sin you can commit, not just from a legal perspective, but from life generally. It is very, very skewed.
We've just heard on the floor of Parliament, just most recently, a leader within the ODM saying that Sisi ni ng'ombe is a baba.
Yep.
Which means that you are willing to be milked dry.
You cannot force me to believe. I'll give way. If it's land that I'm told to return to you, I will. Okay? Because the court has said so. But I'll continue saying, watu wamenirusha. That's all that I'm doing.
The Situation Room, Kenya's
It's Tuesday.
biggest
It's
conversation.
Utamaduni Day, and the possibility of traffic is looking quite slim, but we're going to keep an eye on things regardless and see what these streets look like later. If you're coming into the city, you're not going to have an issue. If you're leaving the city, you're not going to have an issue either. Clear and free in and outbound traffic from most parts of the city today, looking pretty good. We're going to keep an eye on things and see how they open up as we get deep further into the morning. Just at a few minutes after 6 o'clock, let's see what happens as the day progresses. This morning on the 10th of October, talk to us on Spice FM, KE on X, and let's keep things moving regardless this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
Okay.
The only way to start.
How you doing, Do? Are you well?
You know.
Up or down?
It's you to say. Good morning. Hey.
Mambo iko vipi?
Mambo iko bambam.
Mambo bambam.
Ndio.
Very very good.
Uko salama?
Mimi niko salama kabisa.
Good morning.
Nashukuru Mwenyezi Mungu. Yes. It's a brand new day.
Indeed it is.
It's 10:10. Leo ni Moi Day.
Otherwise known as
Utamaduni Day.
Utamaduni.
Utamaduni. I like that word.
Huduma iliisha bwana. Ednah anauliza hii si huduma day. Huduma tulimaliza.
No sooner than.
Government, so tukiita hii kitu huduma, it'll come and bite us.
It will be unconstitutional.
Let us make it utamaduni. You go and utamaduni yourselves.
What does it mean actually?
Utamaduni? Culture.
Ah, voila. Okay. Go culture yourselves. Or get cultured.
Get cultured. Huduma is basically pointing all eyes and fingers at the government and saying, oh, government wapi huduma. Hapana.
Tupatie stress.
Hapana. Fanyeni hivi. Why don't we look back to our cultures? That's what we are doing today. Sawa?
Essentially, it's reflection day.
Moi told us to look back into our human nature, selves.
Self.
Titi hujaanza kutoa vitu kwa bag.
That is a statement of truth.
Siti mambo ikoje? Mambo iko kwa bag.
You know, kitu ambayo mimi sielewi. Nimezoea mtu kubeba bag hapa. No,
you must understand the pleasure that I derive from it every morning. When I see you.
Nimezoea kubeba bag.
No, this is for my pleasure. Strictly for my pleasure.
Binafsi.
Aweke vitu zake.
Hata kipenda kubeba mawe ndani ya bag.
Mtu na bag yake. Mtu na bag yake. One man and his dog.
That one is a good song, but the African version of it is not kila mtu sina bag yake. No, kila mtu na demu yake. There's a song to that effect too.
Is it?
Oh yes. Kila mtu na demu yake.
No, you just made that up. Stop.
No, it's that.
I have
Uzuri wako umenipa iwewe. What's his name? Mr. Nice. It's called Mr. Nice, right?
I think so.
Yeah, Mr. Nice from TZ.
Okay. You say so?
Yeah. Everybody, good morning. Kila mtu na mkoba wake. Mahali mlipo. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. And Mpoa, Ednah is reminding me these days there's vocabulary. Mpoa, verified, blessed. Hizo zote bana, kama ujui sawa, shauri yako. Fanya Utamaduni Day. 7 a.m. we will be talking about the diaspora policy and the migrant workers welfare fund. These are proposals from government, public policy, governance and international law expert and Kenyan community leader in Australia, Joel Kipchumba, joins us for that conversation. At what time? 7 a.m. At 8 o'clock. Yesterday we had the Israeli ambassador to Kenya. Today we have the Palestinian ambassador to Kenya, Ambassador Hazem Shabat, who will be here to talk about the Palestinian voice on the war in besieged Gaza. We'll hear from the Palestinian side. This is not the representative of Hamas. He's a representative of the Palestinian National Authority. Okay? Mambo ni different. This is a government. Hamas is a party and a faction. Well, yeah. Okay?
Hii ni serikali kuu.
At 9 a.m. today, as we commemorate, what's this called again? Utamaduni Day.
Utamaduni Day.
It's also World Day Against the Death Penalty. Now, is Kenya ready to abolish the death penalty? We've seen the courts coming up and saying, all right, so really, we cannot commute people to death sentences,
in good
right?
conscience,
in good conscience and all this and the other.
Even if they've killed other people,
yeah,
we just can't kill them.
We just can't go and really. So, are we really ready to have this conversation? Opio and I, the minority leader in the National Assembly, will be joining us alongside Julie Madheka, who is a program manager at ICJ Kenya. That's 9 a.m. It's a packed morning, isn't it? It is. We're live streaming the show on YouTube and Facebook as usual. If you're online, let us know where you're tuned in from. Kaiser Obed says, mark me present. So we mark you present even before everybody else. Sawa. Everybody else, tell us where you're locked in from, and we shall mark you present as well soon as we find out the weather forecast.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning. We'll see a sunrise at some point, going to highs of 27 and lows of 14. Lows of 14 and mostly cloudy Nakuru, highs of 26. 27 will be the high in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 16, coming down to lows of 15. It's 14 and clear in Eldoret with highs of 26. And looking into a cloudy Mombasa at 24, we'll see highs of 30. 30 will also be the high in what will be a sunny Malindi at 24. It's 20 and clear in Kisumu with highs of 31 into Tuesday, and we'll see highs of 30 as well in a clear Kakamega currently at 19. Rain showers this morning in Kampala at 20 with highs of 29 and lows of 19, and it's a partly cloudy morning in Dar es Salaam at 24 with highs of 30 and lows of 23. It's mostly clear at 14 in Johannesburg with highs of 28 and lows of 14. Lagos this morning is clear at 25 with highs of 31 and cloudy at 22 in Kinshasa with highs of 32. And we're looking at 20 and mostly cloudy in Beijing Tuesday afternoon, going to highs of 23 and lows of 10. And at 11 degrees, it's partly cloudy in Paris with highs of 28. 22 will be the high in a mostly cloudy London at 15. 12 degrees and cloudy in New York Monday night, coming into Tuesday, highs of 16 and lows of 9.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Welcome back. Okay, it is 17 minutes after 6. Who's online?
Everybody. Don Sabwa says, good morning, the great three, Ndu, CT and Eric. Will Kenya be sending special police forces to Israel to help in quelling the rioting Hamas? CT, something must have happened to
If the UN requests us, we will.
Surely, we will first in line. The president will be ready to offer Kenya services. Then now, instead of asking 2 people per police station, they will be asking 4.
Yeah.
Sawa. CT, Don is also asking you, where did Mr. El Nino go? El Nino is actually a boy, it's not a man. So
it is a boy, a child actually. But it's on the way.
It's on the way.
What is not understood usually that the precursor to El Nino are these warm winds and warm days.
Voila.
So if you suddenly feel that it's very warm and you're wondering whether you are unwell, you're not unwell. It's actually very warm.
Okay.
Yes. It was very, very hot yesterday.
Yeah, it was very hot.
At some point at 2 p.m. yesterday, it was 32 degrees.
Yes,
it was very hot.
It was hot. Even when you're in the room, you felt. I had to. So there's some people I was with, and they thought. Some people thought they were unwell. I said, "You're not unwell. It is hot.
It's actually hot. It's like a pressure cooker." Wananchi Mpo.
Tupo.
Sir George Gashoiri says, good morning, Ndu CT and Eric. Time for coffee and Spice FM at the hot seat, indeed. Robert R says, Eric, while you were away, Ndu did a superb job. Have you heard that?
Oh, yes.
James Sekento, tuning from Kerara Pond, says, good morning, Eleanor. He's insisted it's what is being called El Nino. It's okay. He said, it's around the corner. Be prepared. James Mwangi says, good morning. Another good day. We'll sit back and enjoy, indeed. Leshan Sancha, good morning from the lakeside city of Kisumu. Great to tune in. Good morning, Ednah. Keep spicing the morning. Miskia. Afro-Jamaican, good morning from Toronto in Canada. We see you. Deep State says, good job, team, for clearly showing the Israeli ambassador that Kenyans are not stupid. Okay, cool. Usama Hussein Malo says, good morning, everyone. Let's thank God. Some Palestinians wake up today morning without their families. Let's pray for peace. Joaquin Diba says, good morning, the Fabulous Three, listening from Nairobi and enjoying the show. Jackson Mudhuri says, good morning from Meru. Security issues we've gone within Gembe and Isiolo need police intervention more than what is happening in Haiti. Robert says, good morning, tuning from Mombasa. Borabu, Anthony Onyango, that's where he is this morning. And Linus Raymond says, good morning, tuned in from Munich. Don says, yes, Ndu, is a good day for you to sing the song. Yes, do it, please, Ndu. Eric, encourage Ndu to sing the song.
Sing the song,
Which song?
Ndu. Sing the song.
I don't know. Every
Come on, Ndu.
got a song.
Yeah.
John Kiangu says, good morning, tuning from Masaku. Toti Bishop says, good morning, team. I commend you for inviting the Palestinian ambassador for a balanced discussion. Guten Morgen from Dortmund in Germany. And good morning, triplets. Umesikia? Sasa, tumeanza kufanana. That's what they're trying to tell us.
Kabisa.
Nelson Mungai says, this is Nelson Muniri and tuned in from Peterborough in the UK. Elizabeth Kiseo says, good morning. Assalamu alaikum, locked in from Abu Dhabi. And Cyprian Kamboni tuned in from Minnesota. Anne Gore says, good morning, tuned in from Saboti in Trans Nzoia. Many people online this morning. Karibuni sana.
Karibuni everybody. City. Tupeleke katika Jamhuri ya Muungano.
Yes. Otherwise known as TZ. This program is interesting. Every bird flies with its own wings.
A man and his bag. You see? A bird and his wings.
Every bird flies with its own
wings.
Bag. Oh, sorry.
Okay.
We get it.
All right. Haya, hii maneno basi.
On the front page of the Standard, hit me. Ruto takes over sale of state properties. All right. Role of Parliament to oversight executive in jeopardy after the president assented to the privatization bill, which allows government to sell assets without probing from the legislature. Interestingly, it is Parliament that debated and passed this law, whereby they said, actually, you know what? We actually don't have to look at this thing.
Yeah.
You just go ahead.
We are too bureaucratic.
Yeah. So, I mean,
we are a stumbling block.
In this process.
We are a bottleneck.
So we legislate that you actually should take the legislative role away from us. Go ahead and do the thing.
Was this thing, was it put before any public participation?
Yeah. Went through the motions.
Everything.
How come
you didn't participate publicly?
No, I didn't see the public participation.
This is sad.
Forget not going through. I didn't see it.
You didn't see it?
No.
You missed a lot.
Clearly.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
High Court puts brakes on Haiti mission. They said, excuse me, Dr. Ekuru Okoh and one other interested party went to court and they said, excuse me, you cannot do this. So the court said, all right, let this be debated in Parliament. Let's have a discussion about it. Until then, right now, the plans, your everything, nobody's going to Haiti for now. Until the 24th of October, let's have a discussion about that. So we'll look at the details of that. The US now sends warships to the Middle East, and we saw that there was a presence of US warships in the Mediterranean, and there's a lot of speculation, right? But, you know, put your finger in there and guess what that's for. Nyanza Dream Team to deliver state pledges. So now, after the president toured Nyanza over the last 4 days, a dream team has now been put together to say the pledges that were made by the president,
deliver them.
Bring it.
Okay.
Okay.
Pledges, are they part of some development plan that the government has? Are they in line with...
Well, some of them, but then also there were certain things that the president did say.
No, I get what the president said. I'm simply saying, for government to spend money on anything...
It has to be in a plan.
Yes, and has to be budgeted for. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he didn't say. I'm actually agreeing that he said. But then I'm asking, is it? Because if it's a pledge... and isn't budgeted for, it's not going to happen.
That's what you were actually trying to say. That thing that you've just finished. That's what you were trying to say.
I wasn't trying to say it. I've just said it.
Okay. Oil
It will
prices.
happen. Remember what happened to some water project that was budgeted for some place in Mount Kenya?
And then ended up somewhere.
in Ukambani.
In
Ukambani.
Yes.
Bas.
That one.
Yeah, it can happen the same way.
It's very possible. That pledges
So
made
that
in
water
Nyanza,
project might actually move from Asako and come now to Nyanza.
yes, so pledges made in Nyanza can actually be in Coast.
No. If you put it that way, then of course, valid point.
Exactly.
It's budgeted for, and it just takes a long.
The vote is water project.
Yes.
Where is secondary?
Kenya.
No.
Kenya.
Actually, no. I am the one who has misunderstood.
You
this
get it
thing.
now?
Yes, because if I look at the way we had this gentleman from Kenya Power, the MD no less, explaining to us power costs and how it is the plant stations.
Yeah.
Kenya Power takes the longest route possible to get electricity to you. So if the water project is going to take the same route, then let it be in Machakos for the time being.
Yes. It could end up in Mandera. So, just be happy.
Sawa, got it.
Got it. All right, gotcha. Oil prices rise after Hamas attack on Israel. Okay.
I don't get it.
Well, I'll read the story for you in a bit.
Kwani Israel is an oil producer.
Surely. Israel, number one, is not an oil producer.
Is Palestine an oil producer?
People suddenly were afraid that...
Is there an oil pipeline that passes through Gaza?
Was it busted? What happened?
Anyway, trend
on the front page of The Nation. Court puts brake on Haiti. Police mission. Yes, we saw that. Ruto winds up Nyanza development tour. President Ruto, his deputy Rigathi Gachagua and other leaders during the commissioning of the MV Uhuru 2 yesterday at the Kisumu shipyard in Kisumu. It was notable that he talked about the former President Uhuru Kenyatta quite a lot when he was launching this and talked about his penchant for development and saw that was actually being, brought to life. Keb's costly blunder and a woman's epic battle for a slice of a 2.3 billion shilling payout. You want to know what that is? We shall tell you.
Okay.
Right. Make port lease deals. Raila tells State has warned the government against the secrecy it plans to lease key facilities at the ports of Mombasa. He said while concessions of public enterprises were common worldwide, it must be done in a transparent manner. The Supreme Court is to decide on NSSF and workers' pension deal. In case anybody does not know, NSSF stands for the National Social Security Fund. And so they say, you know what? Let us know what's going on with this money. Cabinet now waives 117 billion shillings Miller's debt in a bid to revive the sugar sector. We saw that Cabinet met in Nyanza yesterday. There was a working day yesterday, and it started off with the Cabinet meeting yesterday morning. This is one of the things that they talked about. Look at the details of that.
Business Daily. State plans to scrap taxes on cooking gas as prices rise again. The state has revealed a fresh plan to scrap all taxes on cooking gas and cylinders amid multi-billion shilling investment in the sector in the latest effort to fast-track Kenya's transition to clean energy. The president's cabinet yesterday proposed the tax cuts meant to make the fuel affordable to more households. The following have been proposed: removal of the taxes on locally manufactured cylinders, out. LPG product as well as other costs of the cylinder revalidation. All those out. The only tax currently charged on LPG is a petroleum development levy at a rate of 0.4 shillings per kilogram, while LPG cylinders attract 6 taxes, including VAT, import declaration fee, railway development levy, and insurance and freight. Hizo zote. But now, Cabinet is saying, let's remove these taxes and make LPG. He had said he's going to be what? 350, Bob?
300.
That one. Yeah. He's heading towards that.
Okay.
Higher. Other headline. Nairobi is wealthier than 29 counties combined. A new report shows that Nairobi's contribution to GDP is higher than that of 29 other counties combined. And the share of economic productivity for city residents is nearly 3 times higher than the other people combined. So Nairobi is big. CMA to continue with probe of ex-Uchumi directors. Aye. Something collapsed and all things. Cabinet approves 117 billion shilling sugar millers debt waiver. Kenyans get direct access to 7 trillion shilling Nigerian boers. Kenya investing in the Nigerian stock exchange like that. Fintech startup Second Stacks has added the Nigeria Stock Exchange to its platform, giving investors in Kenya a chance to invest directly in the 7 trillion shilling market. Unaona? Machos.
Let me tell
you. What is there?
Well, let's look at the star, shall we?
Right.
Top right-hand corner, in teal green. International meat.
Nyama.
No.
I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. Sorry, please don't mind me.
Aisuru. It is also allowed. See, it's Utamaduni Day. Okay. And all Africans know that meat is meant for celebration. This one is not meat as in food. This is meet as in gathering. Mkutano. Yes. And I didn't say mandamano, I just said mkutano. Right. Okay. Former First Lady Margaret opens 55th annual Round Square Conference. This is on page 2.
Sorry.
Round Square. That's a headline in the Star.
Top right hand corner until green.
Round Square Conference.
The Round Square Conference.
Okay.
Yes. International at the Bombers of Kenya Auditorium, Nairobi. It's an annual event run for and by students aged 16 to 18. It moves around the world with students from different schools hosting each time. It's a students' thingy magic. Yes. So that's what she did. Then, how 6 billion NHIF haste was executed in fictitious claims. This has been going on for quite some time. Details have emerged how individuals working with NHIF conspired with select hospitals to beat the system and siphon 6 billion in fictitious claims. Some facilities used fictitious claim codes, exaggerated their services and held NHIF patients for days to make a killing, a parliamentary committee has heard. This didn't start yesterday. This thing has been going on for the very longest time. Right, Cabinet approves sugar mills debt write-off.
I'm a show.
Sugar.
Okay.
Sugar.
Okay.
Sugar. The cabinet has endorsed the write-off of public debts, sugar mills, owe the state following parliamentary approval. Fine, we've heard.
So.
High Court suspends deployment, we've also heard. Then, that is, of course, our policemen to Haiti. Now, bang in the middle of the paper, Ruto's game plan to widen support base. UDA boss in massive charm offensive in regions that voted for the opposition in last poll. Then there's a picture, boost for water transport as Ruto launches MV Uhuru 2. This is a ship. And there's a picture of the president, the deputy not very far
What
off.
is this thing though? Is it a ferry? Is it a ship? What is it?
It looks like a ferry to me.
And it was jangled from scratch by us?
I'm not sure that it was jangled from scratch because I know such a vessel existed. And what it did, it was amazing actually. It carried a rail, ile bogi gari motion it Bogie. Carriage.
Bogie.
Yes. It had rails.
Wow.
The ship had rails inside it, so it's like if you wanted to transport things that were already in the carriage, okay, all you did was put that carriage into the ship. Yes. We had 2 of these ships, 2 similar ones. For the longest time, this ship or something like it was docked at the Kisumu wharf. It simply sat there together with very many other seafaring vessels. Some had been seafaring vessels that carried people, and they were just moribund. They simply sat there and gathered water over time. So whether this was newly built from scratch or whether they revamped what was there, I do not know.
Okay.
Yes, but this is alongside other things that happened again in the Uhuru era. For the first time in a very long time, the Navy actually set a base, okay? And that base also came with seafaring vessels that they would use to patrol.
Okay.
So a lot happened then. So the president seems to be augmenting what was started, as should be the case.
Maendeleo ikianza, maendeleo inaendelea.
That's the whole point.
Very good.
That's how government works.
Very good. 26 minutes to 7. Let's take this quick break. Tell us about traffic.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day.
We're not going to have a problem with traffic this morning. Looks like wherever you're going today, you'll be able to get in and out of the city without an issue. The Thika Superhighway clear. You might want to take a ride and experience the Thika Superhighway without any traffic today. Just see what that looks like. Coming in on Uhuru Highway as well, we'll be able to get into the city no problem whatsoever. Let's look at a place where no matter what, there's always traffic. And voila, today, there's none. Coming in from the Eastern Bypass, whether you're touching on Outer Ring at that junction, coming in from Cabanas, North Airport Road and Mombasa Road in general, we're not having an issue at all. Langata Road, free as you're getting into the city. So it looks like it's going to be one of those days where you'll be gone in 60 seconds. Poof, let's keep an eye on things and see how it opens up closer to the middle of the morning. Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so for everybody who had jitters about what was going to happen when police officers are sent to Haiti, then to be able to go and, restore and then maintain a situation of peace, put your jitters aside, at least for the time being. Because President William Ruto's plan to lead a multinational force in Haiti has hit a snag as the High Court yesterday issued orders barring the deployment of Kenyan police officers to the Caribbean nation. High Court Judge Enoch Chacha-Mwita issued the orders on the strength of a petition filed by Third Way Alliance, its party leader Okoh, and national chairperson Mijuru Waweru. The Third Way Alliance argues that the Constitution only allows police officers to operate within the country's borders and that there was no cabinet resolution allowing President William Ruto's administration to offer leading the Haiti mission. The United Nations Security Council on the 2nd of October approved the deployment of a multinational force to Haiti to be led by Kenya's National Police Service. The US has pledged to give Kenya 100 million shillings, which is $100 million, which is 14.8 billion shillings for the Haiti mission. Yesterday, Justice Mwita gave senior government officials, including President Ruto, 3 days to respond to the petition. The Third Way Alliance team will then have 3 days to file any further affidavits in support of the petition. So, he's been listed as a respondent, President Ruto, as well as the National Security Council, Inspector of Police Japheth Kome, Interior CS Kithure Kindiki, and National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula, as well as Attorney General Justin Muturi. Okoh has asked the High Court to declare the 3 sections of the National Police Service Act unconstitutional. The 3 NPS Act sections allow the president to deploy police officers to other countries, and he argues that the 3 sections are in conflict with Article 234 of the Constitution, which limits police officers' mandate to inside Kenya's borders. So they're saying, something here is not gelling. You get it? The Police Act allows them to do this very thing. But what Okoh is arguing is that all of this falls under the ambit of the Constitution. And the Constitution precludes police officers from operating outside of the borders of Kenya. So on that alone, Okoh is saying, you know what?
This is unconstitutional.
It's unconstitutional, so stop it. We should not go anywhere.
Right.
So for now, it's on hold.
Sawa. Ni sawa, Okoh. Ni sawa. So MPs listened to a bill that was brought to the National Assembly by the leader of the majority in the National Assembly, Kimani Ichung'wah. They debated it and they voted yes. And yesterday it was assented into law in the presence of the people who took it, including the former Speaker of the National Assembly, who's now the Attorney General, Justin Muturi. Which is that law? The privatization law. The privatization law now allows the executive to go ahead with privatization without necessarily going through Parliament for approval. So Parliament will only now have the role of ratifying what has already been sold. Tumeuza Kenya.
Sawa, stamp. Next. What again?
Tuliuzia wale jamaa walitusukuma sana, lakini pia si tuliwasukuma. Tumechukua at least 5,000. Weka stamp. Na hiyo pesa iko wapi? Unajua? Tulikuwa Chinese alikuwa amekaa hapo kwa mlango anataka pesa yake. Sasa tukalipa Chinese pesa yake yote 5,000 tukalipa Chinese. Haya. The Act provides that the proceeds from the sale of a direct state shareholding shall be paid into the consolidated fund, offering a new revenue for the cash-strapped government to raise fresh revenues. The government has since made a U-turn on the planned sale of sugar mills, saying they'll instead be leased. But the privatization authority will have 9 board members instead of 11. The rule is also scrapping a steering committee within the Privatization Commission, which was previously charged with key decisions of the planned sale to eliminate lengthy decision-making processes. And among the things that are earmarked for quick sale, 1, government wants to reduce its shareholding in KenGen.
Okay.
Kenjan. It's we're holding 51%. Why should we let's reduce our shareholding in Kenjan? Sawa, sell it. To who? We shall find out. Another one. Of course, we already know the telecom deal that's going on. The other one is East African Portland Cement. That one, they are selling it. Now, East African Portland Cement used to be a cement manufacturing company. Not anymore, I'd argue. East African Portland Cement is one of the largest real estate holders in this country. It's thousands and thousands of acres of land in very prime areas.
Yep.
We are selling East Africa Portland Cement. Sawa. The same thing we are doing with Telcom. Telcom is real estate. When is the last time you had someone calling you from a Telcom line? Telcom. Telcom is real estate. Telcom is being sold. What is being sold?
Real estate.
Real estate.
No, should we say what is being bought?
Yeah, what's being bought. Yeah. So, and this privatization will just go on like that, haraka. You know, we found somebody, they're based in Dubai. Where were they before? Well, they're based in Dubai, okay.
What's the problem?
What's the problem?
Have we not just told you?
Where were they? Where does that matter? Where are they now?
Yeah. So do they have money or do they not have money? What do we want? We want money.
To pay off liabilities and things like this that are disturbing us. And they have the money. So why are you asking many questions?
Yeah.
Please, let's move on.
You're asking, and that's why we're removing Parliament from this thing.
Yeah. Because all the questions is too long, too much. Let's finish the thing. We move. Liabilities paid. Sorted. We
Next up. Hii Kenya Railways hii mnaona? Ngoja bwana.
You know, this has happened before. This has happened before. And the hand that I see in all this is World Bank, IMF. Because when we had structural adjustment programs in the Moi era, this privatization thingamajig occurred even then. It started off with government houses. Now, most people will not know, but some of the most prime real estate in the country was actually government land that housed senior government officials. Upper Hill was real estate. PSs and the like, and other senior government officials lived there.
Yes.
Kilimani area, parastatals.
Yes.
Posta, etc., etc. Lavington, again, government. Now, real estate, again. And then, there was railway land. Now, there was no entity in this country that owned more land than the railway.
Yep.
Some of this is like the Golden Estate. That's railway land. Railway land was everywhere, parklands. One could argue most of parklands was railway land. So again, when this process began, it then meant that all these properties were sold. Now, or should I say most of them were sold? But then, did you ever see the railway being revived and benefiting from these sales? After all, it was their land. Did you see it?
No.
Nope. Now you will find that there are other government entities. Some of them were, should we say, factories that were found in Eldoret, Kisumu, prime areas.
Yep.
Again, real estate. Because these came about at a time when land was aplenty and people were few. But government still owns. Now, whatever remains from little chunks that people have carved off over time, now it's in free fall.
It's being consolidated again out.
Yes. So, the country will, what asset will we actually have beyond the human resource? Because humans we have in plenty.
Mount Kenya.
Mount Kenya. No, good point. How do you know it is intact?
Wow.
Umeona title.
What are you
Umeona
saying?
title.
Do you know Kilimanjaro was in Kenya? Yes. Okay. Then there's like a queen who decided to give her cousin, another German. Yes. Seriously. That's how Kilimanjaro ended up in Tanzania. It was a gift.
Yeah. Bequeath you.
So, don't joke.
Don't joke.
You're asking about Mount Kenya.
I'm saying that's the one that's left now.
City, tell us the story.
Let me tell you a story. A happy story, yo. Okay. I am going to go to the story. Cabinet approves sugar debt write-off. Mills owe 117 billion in banks, loans, tax arrears and penalties. The cabinet has endorsed the write-off of debts public sugar mills owe the state following parliamentary approvals. In the Monday meeting at State Lodge, Kisumu, President William Ruto acknowledged the two House's resolution on the reform sanctioned by the cabinet for the turnaround of the sugar sector. Additionally, the National Treasury is working on waiving tax penalties and interest within 30 days as agreed by the cabinet. There's something that people seem to rejoice about every time you read these things. I have a problem. By the time you accumulate 117 billion shillings, what exactly are you saying has happened to the sugar mills?
Yeah.
Are you saying there was no cane? Are you saying they didn't produce sugar? Are you saying they didn't produce alcohol? So do we have a reservoir of sugar that is sitting somewhere in all these sugar mills that no one has sold? Do we see agrochemical and other such institutions that are supposed to use these byproducts from the sugar cane also going bust or have reservoir, a whole reserve of the material sitting somewhere? No, we don't. All over time, there has been this story of sugar mills not making money. And yet, if you look at the Kenya Sugar Board was one of the richest boards we had. Because for the longest time, and the Kenya Sugar Research Institute, you know why? Every sugarcane farmer paid cess. Cess was for maintenance and road, but there's like a levy that was also charged and went directly to these institutions. Now, what am I saying? You are talking about reviving the sugar mills. Are you talking about ensuring that the problems that brought them into this situation where an having to write off debts has been cured? Has it been sorted out? Because all these mills, there was a time they were profit making. Albeit, yes, they were heavily supported and subsidized by the government. But the idea was that the sugar grower should benefit from it. And they did.
Yep.
Smallholders could take their children abroad with the proceeds from sugarcane. I'm telling you this because I come from the sugar belt.
The model worked.
It did work. It did work. So now we are writing this thing off. And as we write this off, we are writing off every misdeed that occurred that brought these sugar mills to their knees. Every time they'd be closed down for some 6 months, repairs. What I think was that they were just cleaning the equipment, because I honestly, repair for a sugar mill means you upgrade it so that the situation it was in before is much improved, its capacity, everything about it is improved. Now there's talk of modernization of the sugar mills.
Yeah.
But you talk of modernization when a time when sugar growers lost faith in growing sugar cane.
Growing it.
Yeah.
So the very raw material that you need, you're going to have to revive the interest in all that again.
Start from scratch, you said.
I understand the need to appease people, but I also understand the need to actually ensure that the harms of yesteryears don't come to haunt us again. Because if all we're doing is sugarcoating this thing, then, pun intended here, yes, then this entire exercise is
all an infertility.
No,
it's been done before. Do you think leasing will help? Because the plan now here is we're not even going to privatize these things, we're going to bring in to lease it. So a private investor comes in, you had talked about even farmers coming together and leasing. But yeah, however it's done.
What's the details? I mean, the response to that depends on the details of that leasing. Yes. You see, at the end of the day, the farmer must benefit. At the end of the day. Now, the investor must also benefit. So how do you marry these two? If the plan is there to marry the two, and one can see it, and it's something that's actionable, then yes. But let me say it again. 117 billion shillings is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money, my friend.
Okay.
And how do they owe the government 117 billion shillings?
I don't know.
So they were not paying taxes. They were not remitting. Why were they not doing that?
Eric, every time Moroni Sugar Factory was under receivership, I have had occasion to talk to the receivers. And what I found amazing was that the receivers were collecting money. And you know the sort of money they were collecting? Someone tells you, we collected 800 million shillings. Said, really? Said, yes. And we are 800 million. Said, yes, we have. And we are giving 400 to the government. We asked them to give us, to remain with 400 to do ABCD. The government insisting they should take all of it. The receivers that I met in the times, the many times under receivership, are the ones who actually educated me about this. Because I went there to chase a check. But I got to meet the receivers. And so we got talking. And we chatted and we chatted and we chatted. What they told me blew my mind. Completely. Because I was thinking, money. The factories were making money. In fact, I had never thought of it until I was told, said, look, let's walk you to the stores. I went to the stores. He said, all this sugar you see here is going to be collected in the course of the day. You can see the pile up. what we're going through and what we're helping you sort out. Let's go back after half an hour. See all these lorries?
They'll be gone.
And there'll be others, because there were lorries even outside the gate. Yes. He said it will be gone. Now, they said there is nothing that we produce that we cannot sell.
Yeah.
So, if they cannot sell it, the sale is what gives them the money they were telling me about.
Yeah.
So, how then is it that money is being made, the factory isn't being revamped?
It's just...
And then then it owes money. And yet they were telling me they were giving the government money. There is so much hoo-ha.
Theft.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But is that not the story of government enterprises?
Yeah.
That's it, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You don't have to look far to find another one like
Yes.
that.
And at the end of the day, the person who bears the brunt of all this is the so-called smallhold farmer. That's the person who bears the brunt of it.
Let's see how this one goes. 117. It's not the first time that debts have been waived for sugar mills. It's not the first time.
All right. So there was a blunder. Not a blender, a blunder. And Kebs is in the middle of it. Maybe it should have been a blender. Okay. Now, the High Court has frozen part of 2.3 billion shillings that Kenya owes to the Dubai Geochem Middle East following a battle over agency fees that has provided a behind-the-scenes glimpse of how the company won a seemingly impossible battle. All right. Now, there's a lady. Her name is Priscilla Nyabura Jue. She's the woman who secured the crucial documents that Geochem Middle East used to successfully sue for illegal termination of its contract to inspect petroleum products. So are we understanding what's going on here? There's an external body come in.
They do the inspection.
They do the inspection before
behalf
Kebs
of
says
Kebs.
exactly. Before
Right.
Kebs says go ahead. Now, this lady got the contract for this organization to do that. All right. Now, she claims the Dubai firm is trying to cheat her out of 300 million shillings in agency fees. Now, while she claims that the two parties had a verbal contract entitling her to 12% of any compensation package, Geochem Middle East denies employing her as its local agent. They're saying they came into the country, they bid the thing, they won, they moved. They don't know who Priscilla is. Priscilla says, it's not possible. Now, the company admits that she played a central role in gathering evidence it presented to senior counsel Fred Ngatia, who won the protracted compensation battle, but that she only helped because her close friendship with the managing director at that time, one Rajiv Bal. So it was a friendship thing. Eric, can you do me a favor? Yeah.
Managing director of the company
of the company.
Kebs?
No, not of Kebs, of the company, right?
Of the Dubai-based company.
The Dubai. So it's like friends. Do for me because you
They're
know
doing
the
a favor,
information.
and it's a multi-billion shilling project, and they're doing you a favor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, in December, the High Court ordered the Kenya Bureau of Standards to honor an arbitration award that awarded Geochem Middle East 2.3 billion shillings for the work that they did, because Kebs at some point was saying, they said no, pay them the money. High Court Judge Joachim Mwangi has now ordered Kebs to pay $1.29 million into an interest-bearing bank account registered with lawyers representing Ms. Njue, Geochem Middle East, and Kebs, pending the termination of the dispute. Now, the order dated July 7th this year, following Ms. Njue's argument that the Middle East company had closed its Nairobi offices and could avoid paying her if she won the case. So they said, hey, you guys, if these guys go, I won't get my money. Mwangi, who is the judge, held that without the freezing order, she was also at risk of a paper tiger judgment if Ms. Njue's arguments were proven. Now, what a paper tiger judgment is, we don't know. Jue has sued the firm and its managing director, for who was supposed to be her friend, and listed Kebs as an interesting party in the suit.
Interested or interested?
Or both. But let's go with interested.
Interestingly interested.
So, according to Justice Mwangi, this is it. The court has already found that the plaintiff, Jue, has a prima facie case with a likelihood of success. So it is clear to us she's provided quite a lot of information, and we can see, obviously, she wasn't just a friend to Rajiv. She actually did the work. All right. Okay. It is undisputed that the defendants have since closed their East Africa offices that were located in Nairobi and now relocated to Dubai, and have attached the accounts of the interested party, Kebs, with the sole intention of securing the arbitrary award. So they've moved and they've attached their company so that when the money comes, they are paid directly. So she said, hold on. All this money, what you're going to do is you're going to pay it into this account, according to the justice, not just anyone that you like, this account.
Okay.
Because I have seen that Priscilla deserves some of this money. So what we're not disputing the award. That one is clear. KEBS must pay this company. Now, we have stepped in to say, as this company is being paid,
Priscilla must
be paid
participate
in this money that's coming.
Very good.
Okay? So that is where we are now.
Got a number, Priscilla?
Dr. Priscilla? How do you just tell me I'm your friend and I did work for
Surely.
you? Friendship for... Then I lose 300 million shillings because we
Just
are
like
friends.
that? Nothing.
What is it about money and people?
Why?
Money, not love, makes the world go round, CT.
It does, huh?
Or sometimes you lose your employment. Frederick Kanyora Njehia is a man who was employed by a company called Rafiki wa Maendeleo Trust. He was initially employed for 2 years by the charity organization, and then he got a further 5-year fixed-term contract, but he worked for 2 years in that contract. He had expected to serve the full 5-year term of the latter contract, but his employment was terminated after an anonymous person reported that he was stealing the company's time with a female colleague.
Two of them were stealing the time, or
he was stealing the company's time
by...
with a female colleague.
Gotcha.
The female colleague, meaning the female also worked
in that
but she wasn't
company.
stealing the company time, and yet she was with him and he was stealing the company time.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
This matter went to court. Rafiki wa Maendeleo Trust said in court that 2 years into the contract, we received an anonymous complaint dated November 1st, 2021, alleging that the claimant, that is Njehia, and a female member of staff were spending too much time together in the finance office, leaving little time to carry on our work.
If they're spending their own time...
The organization further alleged that Njehia had confronted another employee asking him to keep off the female colleague, whom he even called his wife.
Stuff was, all right.
On November 7th, 2022, the employer issued a show cause notice alleging that he had summoned and confronted the shaken colleague for associating with the said female worker. Si nilikuambia, my friend. Nilikuambia wachana na huyo. Then the person who was accosted is not the one who wrote the complaint. The one that wrote, the writer of the complaint was anonymous.
Of course. So 3 guesses for who that would be.
Njehia responded to the same show cause letter on the same day, denying the allegations by terming them pure gossip and total falsehood meant to injure his reputation. I only had an informal engagement with a member of staff regarding the female staff member at lunchtime in October. On February 28 this year, the employer wrote to notify him of his sacking after not meeting the target set for his accounting job. The employer said he had, besides the wanting conduct with a female colleague, not reconciled the organization's bank accounts, petty cash, intercompany transfers, inventory stocks, staff advances, expenses, and draft management accounts. The employer, however, did not correctly specify in the dismissal letter whether it was sacking him for spending time with a female colleague or failing to meet the targets. Now, that matter went to court. And he was saying, you see, I had a 5-year contract. I only served 2 years. I had 3 years
to do the
remaining. Now, judge, can you tell these people to pay me the remaining 3 years? The judge said, yeah, you have a point. You have a point. The letter of the employer is not... But however, you cannot be paid for those 3 years, Bwana. There's a case in Uganda, the Supreme Court of Uganda in Bank of Uganda versus Tinkamanyire 2008, that held that it's unattainable in law that when an employment contract is terminated prematurely or illegally, an employee should be compensated for the remainder of the years. So you wanted that to the remainder of the years? No. What I'm going to do is... kupanguza machozi, I'm going to award you 798,000 shillings and not 7.2 million
a
shillings.
Tenth of what you
wanted.
And what's the logic behind it, apart from the fact that
there's precedent in Uganda.
Okay.
Yeah. Female colleague is another story. 7 a.m. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
morning. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. A Nairobi High Court has stopped on a temporary basis the planned deployment of police officers to Haiti for a peacekeeping mission until a case filed by a third-way alliance is heard. The judge also ordered that the pleadings be served on the respondents immediately and that the respondents file responses to the petition within 3 days after service. Once served, the respondents will have 3 days to file and serve written submissions to the petition, also not exceeding 10 pages ahead of the October 24th when new directions will be given. Chief Justice Martha Koome has presided over the swearing-in of 69 newly recruited resident magistrates who will also serve as small claims court adjudicators. The Chief Justice described magistrates' courts and small claims courts as people's courts and the fate of the justice system. The CJ cited caseload statistics show that 85% of cases that come to the judiciary are heard and determined at subordinate courts. She highlighted that it is at the magistrates' court and the small claims court where the highest numbers of unprecedented litigants are found, meaning that the vast majority of people's experience of the law and the justice system is drawn from their contact or interaction with the magistrates' courts and the small claims courts. Now, President William Ruto completed his tour of the Nyanza region, the political stronghold of Azimio leader Raila Odinga. The head of state launched various development projects before heading to neighboring Uganda to hold talks with the country's President Yoweri Museveni to find a solution to the challenges facing fishermen on Lake Victoria. The president also launched the MV Uhuru II ship, worth 2.4 billion shillings in Kisumu County, the very first ship built in Kenya. MV Uhuru, with a capacity of 1,800 tons, was built at the Kenya shipyard by Kenyan companies in collaboration with the Kenya Defence Forces and the Dutch company Diamond Shipyards. Speaking during the ceremony, the president said the launch of the ship will be one of the strategies to promote the national economy.
As the MV Uhuru 2 sails the waters of Lake Victoria, it will be a symbol of our region's collective dream of a brighter future made possible through partnership and collaboration, a reminder that our journey towards economic transformation will require consistency and high standards, and prove that we can deliver above expectations.
President Ruto also asked Nyanza governors to use the resources available in Lake Victoria to create job opportunities.
I encourage all county governments within the Lake Victoria Basin to identify and develop economic opportunities directly and indirectly arising from the shipyard activities and related infrastructure. As we go forward,
while in Migori, the president promised to revive the ailing sugar sector.
Tumepata matatizo makubwa. Kule Mumias ilikuwa na matatizo makubwa. Kule Nzoia hivyo hivyo. Chemelil namna hiyo. Moroni namna hiyo. Hapa Soni kulikuwa na problems. Na niliwaambia ya kwamba we are going to work on the transformation of this sector. Saa hizi tunatumia pesa zetu nyingi kuagiza sukari kutoka nje, ili hali tuko na uwezo wa kuzalisha kiasi kikubwa kupitia kwa kilimo ya miwa. Tuwe na sukari ya kutosha, wakulima wetu wapate mapato, tuajiri vijana wetu zaidi.
The government has been asked to put in more efforts to restore normalcy on the Kisumu-Kericho border in Sondu area. For several days, residents have reported that education at the border have been affected after teachers and even students stayed away for fear of their lives. Among the injured is a teacher who continues to receive treatment at a hospital in Kisumu County. According to the head teacher of one of the schools in the area, students have been boycotting classes even after Kam returned, many fearing that the situation will not last. It should be noted that a special force was sent to the area after 7 people died during his visit to Nyanza. The president vowed to deal with the issue once and for all.
Shamwambia Profesa Kithure Kindiki, vile tumewakalia wale wa North Rift, vile tunawakalia Al-Shabaab, hawa watu wa Sondu hapa watakiona cha mtemakuni.
And governors have continued to plead with the national government to release 8 billion shillings meant for El Nino rains preparations across the counties, led by COG Health Committee Chair Muthomi Njuki. They say different counties have already set aside money in their budgets to deal with the rains. The Met Department has announced that the El Nino rains will begin next week up to December. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Spice FM, Nakuru.
All right, not much of an issue with traffic this morning. I think it's going to be that way for most of the day. You're coming on the Southern Bypass. What a ride that will be. And also, you'll see the same on Uhuru Highway, Langata Road, coming in from the Thika Superhighway and then in from Westlands as well. Folks still under the blankets, under the covers, at least for a while now. Let's wait and see what happens through the morning, but likely to be just so. We'll just be keeping an eye on things and let us know just in case anything does pop off. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
After 7, how are you doing? Welcome to the second hour of Kenya's biggest conversation. We are on Spice FM, on YouTube and Facebook. Those who are joining us now on KTN Home, karibu sana to the conversation. This is the station that reminds you to run at the end of this month.
Let's do it on the 29th of October. Remind you that Kenya's largest single-day athletics event takes place on the 29th. It's the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Have you registered? I know you will, but time is running quickly. And what we want you to do is log on to www.nairobimarathon.com. The marathon takes place in physical form on the 29th. There's going to be a virtual run a week before that, and you can get all your numbers on the leaderboard. And we'll see races take place in Kisumu, in Mombasa, in Kakamega, and then in Nairobi on the 29th. Now, you register. It's 2,000 shillings to register for it. And so you show up and you run. But then beyond that, the Future Makers program sits in the background of all of this. And what it does is it guarantees that young people, especially girls and those with disability, have an opportunity to learn, to earn, and to grow.
Very good. We have a guest in the studio who's come all the way from Australia to participate in this year's Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. I've put you into that mix. Joel Kipchumba is one of the leaders of the Kenyan community in Australia. Good morning, Joel.
Yeah, good morning, Latiff.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
I appreciate it.
Karibu sana. So you participate in the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon, eh?
I used to run in college, but it looks like I will have to register this one.
Just
now
register. It's chap, nairobimarathon.com, 2,000 bob, run.
I'll be on it.
And if you don't want to run, walk.
You can start with the 42-kilometer run.
And then end up with a 5-kilometer walk.
Then you can end up with a 5-kilometer.
I mean, my name portrays me, so really.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation. It's good to have you around.
Yes, Auntie.
City has the day's proverb, and this week's proverbs are from
the United Republic of Tanzania.
All right.
It's not just republic, it's united.
It's not democratic, it's reunited.
The democracy can follow the unification. Right. Every bird flies with its own wings.
Every bird flies with its own wings. Joel was prepared to write that one down. Then that's an easy one. I don't even need to write it down. What's the interpretation of it?
Oh, well, I guess really, simply put, we are all born into families. You might be having brothers and sisters, but at the end of the day, of course, you're raised together.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you make your own decisions, you write your own path, and I think that would be something closely related to that.
City. Bwana mpatia maxi ngapi bwana?
Bwana huyu amesema kwa ufupi hajakosa chochote.
Amepata zote
Bwana.
Well done.
Amepita mtihani.
That's a good one.
Sasa tumpatwe shangwe na vigelegele sio?
Kabisa. Kabisa na nderemo na vifijo.
Yes.
Yeah. After all, it's Utamaduni Day. Happy Utamaduni Day.
Oh, thank you.
How long have you been in Australia and what do you do there?
So I started off in United States. That was way back in 2006. Went there for school and athletic scholarship. After that, nikamaliza, and then I came back home a bit. Then I left Kenya for Australia in 2014 up to now. Just went there for work, and then at some point I realized I needed to upskill. So I went back for public policy, governance and law at Macquarie University. And thereafter, now I work for Department of Communities and Justice, based in a small city called Albury, Wodonga.
Wodonga?
Yes,
Right.
it's a border city.
Okay.
Yes.
When you are a leader of the Kenyan community in Australia, describe for us the community in Australia. How many people are we talking about? What mix like? Where are they?
So, according to statistics found on the website of UNESCO, apparently there are only 15,000 to 20,000 Kenyan students there. Majority of Kenyans in Australia are students. Of course, there are those who have now started migrating there as workers, especially healthcare workers, the doctors, the nurses, and of course engineers, people from Safaricom and other telcos. They've moved there in the recent time. Yes, but majority of Kenyans are either students or when they are students, they've graduated, they found work, which is really amazing because Kenyan people are really hardworking. Yes.
How is it organized, the community? Is there one association, one union, or are they different associations depending on the region?
Yes. So Australia has about 7 states, so the states and territories. So territories are a little bit smaller, and they are for administrative purposes. So I think majority of Kenyans are in New South Wales, which is people know Sydney really, and then Melbourne and Perth, mostly students. How are they organized? Well, they are. What is it called? The diaspora policy envisioned Kenyan communities where it's organized like devolution, where you organize according to the region where you are. So in Sydney, for example, we have a lot of organizations, but there is one umbrella body called Kenya Diaspora Board. So I'm a member of Kenya Diaspora Board. We have our leadership there, but this is an umbrella body for the smaller organizations. Yes.
When you say smaller organizations, what do you mean?
So, Kenyans have, depending on where you are in life, right? There's needs that you need. So, for example, if you're a student, you need a welfare organization where in case there is issues at home and you're new in Australia, you haven't worked well, and you need to come back home. For example, we've lost 2 students in the recent time drowning. What they needed, to bring the bodies back home, it needed all Kenyans to come together. So if you belong to groups that are geared towards self-help, like here in Kenya, and then of course we'll contribute money and support you, not necessarily to bring the body, but also if you have a loved one at home who has passed on, unfortunately, you would come home.
So okay, there's a welfare group.
There's welfare group.
What are the groupings do you have?
The other groups
okay,
that
let
are...
me ask.
Yes.
Mkona chama?
Yes, we have chamas.
Political party ama chama?
No. It's the chama of, how merry-go-round.
Okay.
I think that's what is.
That is what I'm referring to.
Yes. So that one tend to be, and it's funny how it's organized. It's gendered. Yeah, so, but hopefully more men will join these jammers because I've seen they do wonders. Yeah.
So the Kenya Diaspora Network, as you've mentioned, so what kinds of things are we seeing that the network actually does, activities that we're looking at taking place in Australia specifically? I'm asking this off the back of different incidences or different experiences that Kenyans have been through in other parts of the world.
Yes.
And there's always been a fight to say, look, if we can get some kind of organization around the people who live in another country, being the diaspora, then perhaps we will see a better forming of, activities. Like you say, if there is trouble, how can we take care of that? How can we say that we have a progressive diaspora out there? So what are some of the things that then the network does to then guarantee some of these activities?
So the group that I belong to, Kenya Diaspora Board, it's made up of professionals. These are people who have been in Australia for a long time, and they tend to, be in most parts of Sydney. And these guys are either nurses or doctors or teachers or migration agents or lawyers. So you are grouped according to your expertise. So if you're good as a lawyer, then you'll be helping those who are in facing legal issues. Of course, there's also we lobby, and especially with the new government now, there's a lot of things that they talk about, but they don't implement. So it's up to us to come and be like, hey, this is what you're talking about, but it's not happening. So of course we do lobby, we advise, and we come in whenever there's distress calls, emergency accommodation, and basically advising students. And sometimes we organize, there's a lot of students who face a lot of mental health issues. So we organize mental health awareness meetings. We also organize police, because over there you cannot just drink and drive. I mean, in Kenya, you're not supposed to drink and drive, right? But people still do. Over there, if you do, then you're really in big trouble. You might be sent home. So we actually tend to advise and talk to students, especially the new ones, on what's expected of them.
Okay.
Yes.
Is there any kind of liaison connect between the board and the government of Kenya here in terms of information as per how many Kenyans really are on this other side, for kind of like a track and trace, not track and trace for, keeping tabs on you, but then to be aware of the Kenyans that are outside of the country for knowledge purposes, knowledge and information purposes?
And I'm glad you asked that. According to Kenyan government, about 3 million Kenyans are out there. If you ask specifics, where are they? And then, of course, you would only get that 150,000 Kenyans or thereabout are in United States. And then, of course, 140,000 in UK. Now, if you go, and those are only found on the government census of, say, United States and UK, but it's not found on the Kenyan government website or the census of our country. So I guess really what the link between ourselves and the government is normally the embassy. So if you really have a good ambassador who's really connected to the community, we tend to function well. And we've been lucky in Australia. Ambassador TB's was amazing, always connected to people, always visiting all these states. So I guess that's really what links us between government and the diasporans. Yes.
We now have a State Department for Diaspora Affairs, and that's the first time that we have this kind of proper focus on Kenyans who are living and working abroad by the government. Has the State Department interacted with the Kenyans who are in Australia, as far as you know? And what kind of interactions have you had? What kind of encouragement to register so that now we can harmonize and make this proper register of Kenyans who are in Australia?
I guess to give credit to the new peers, we've had probably 2 or 3 meetings online. Those are geared towards registering Kenyans and making Kenyans aware of the services that are available from the department.
Yeah.
So it's been good interaction so far. I mean, it's 1 year. So hopefully we're going to have better and more interaction, and especially things that are meant to protect Kenyans. The problem with the government is they tend to look at diaspora as income earner for the government. They forget that we are human beings, that we have loved ones at home, that we have our parents, that we are children. Some as young as 18 are in Kenya. Kenyans are in diaspora. So really, that's the problem, is the government sees us as just money.
It's seeing remittance.
Yes. It should be.
What would you like them to see you as, and how?
Well, I mean, we are Kenyans, right?
Right.
We have rights. We've had this conversation about voting for how long now? 10 years, right? No single Australian or Kenyan Australian has ever voted. I'm not aware if any Kenyan in America or UK voted. I'm very aware that only Kenyans within Africa did vote last time. So hopefully this time we are guaranteed that right of voting. It's very important. And
so there was no voting last year in Australia?
No,
because there was some voting in parts of Europe.
I did not see any in Australia.
Okay.
Yes. And hopefully next time we get to vote. And we are not asking to vote for Member of Parliament or MCA, right? We are asking to vote for the President. That should be the easiest one to do.
Okay.
Yes.
What else?
So now you're opening Pandora's box.
Yes. Yes. That's the general idea, isn't it?
Yes. So I think the issues with diaspora, current and emerging, are a lot. But it depends on where you are at. So, for example, safety and protection. We've seen a lot of Kenyans dying in Saudi and Lebanon. I do not understand what government allows people to go to Lebanon. Lebanon has no government, and you're still sending people there. Really, they are struggling. You're sending to Saudi. So those are the number one issue.
Government in Saudi Arabia, boss.
Yeah, there is government in Saudi Arabia.
And there's a proper organization and organized deal signed between the government of Kenya and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia on Kenyans working in Saudi Arabia.
But we still experience issues of people being misused.
So what do you want? You want them to stop going to Saudi Arabia?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
They should be. So here's the problem.
Okay.
We send young people who haven't been trained well. You go to far-fetched corners of Kenya and get all these young girls and then promise them all these jobs without training them. Some of them don't even know what a microwave is. They think it's a small TV. That's sad. If you go to the airport at the moment, in the morning especially, you see all these girls lined up, all with papers and, a lot of... When you're flying yourself, I don't see you carrying all this paperwork, right? Yeah, so that's a telltale sign that there's some issues here. So what needs to happen? These girls needs to be trained on domestic work.
Yeah.
Proper training, not just this. But you start with regularizing the agencies. Where the problem is the agencies. These people are making money off our young girls, but they do not protect them. So those are the safety issues that I have with
that you're raising.
Yes.
Joel, as you raise these issues, actually, credit to the government, those things are in place. And they've been put in place. Yes, there are rogue agents who do not follow these procedures. But the deal that is signed between Kenya and the Gulf countries and Saudi Arabia is that there will be a platform where work is registered. The person who's looking for work in that country registers, and the Kenyan agent goes and sees the kind of workers that are sought. There is training that happens, supervised by NITA. And then the worker is sent to that country. So if they are rogue workers, I agree with you, because that's a complaint that we hear all the time. So how would you like the government to rein in on these rogue agents that are sending Kenyans bypassing what should be done?
Yes. So I think the problem is these agencies really, we've had stories, ran and operated by politicians. So you're talking of regulation by the people who are running these organizations. That's where the problem is. So I think number one thing is we should stop politicians from doing business.
We will be interfering with their fundamental rights.
In other
so they'll argue, right?
In other countries, so they should not be, running it front. They can own the business, but not necessarily.
But Joel, I do see your point.
Yes.
It's the same argument that has been raised about people in the public service also doing business with the government. Yes.
The direct conflict of interest.
Yes, it is. So, again, they are the lawmakers. And as you correctly put it, we have also heard that there are individuals who are in high political positions who actually own. But then I would also argue that because they are such individuals, it is a lot easier, it seems difficult, it's a lot easier to put pressure on them to ensure that law and order is actually followed.
Indeed.
Yes.
I mean, look, so a couple of weeks ago, the PS for the Ministry of Labour was here and we raised this question, quite extensively with him. And one of the things he did say, just, to reiterate that, is that, they've put certain measures in place because, it really does get to, I hear what you're saying about being at the airport, and we raised this particular issue, being at the airport and you're seeing young girls can't be more than 15, 16, 17 years old, really being left, to their own.
Yes.
And so one of the things he said was that there's going to be further collaboration then between the Ministry of Labour and the Ministry of Immigration, the ministry under which immigration falls, to then make sure that even at the point of departure, there is extensive questioning as to where these individuals are going, under which NITA certified agency that they are with. If they are not, they can actually then deny travel based on that. He also did mention that one of the things is that because they're dealing with this monster that has been there for so long, to start to then unravel the threads that have been, embedded so deeply, it's going to take some work. But there's also an agreement whereby, like Saudi Arabia, because Saudi Arabia is one of the most, prominent issues, that it's not just sending people certified from Kenya, but then in terms of who is receiving them, it has to be clear that an agent has received them on that side and that they're working and that they can be, traced and tracked at any one time. But it is going to take time. But I hear what you're saying, that how then do you make sure that it actually happens if folks who are in the business are actually those who should be superintending over the thing,
But remember also, there is a problem here of demand. There are so many young people who are looking for opportunities.
Absolutely.
They are completely unaware of some of the things you're discussing here. Nothing has ever exposed them to the dangers that we see. It's when one is focusing on the benefits that they think they will get, nothing else matters. So even if they have parents, the parents will support the idea of their child going. Remember, there's also this matter of prestige that your child is living and working abroad. Okay?
Doesn't matter what they're doing.
No, what they're doing is another detail, but they're abroad. Okay? All these things lumped together, it makes these young people easy prey. It also makes their parents easy prey. Yes.
And I'm glad you brought up the issue of, regularizing now, these movements. And that's a welcome, really, development. We all have been yearning for something like that. At least something is getting done. What I have an issue with is, it's not really an issue. I hope as you deny people to exit, you are also aware that they've paid money, and that their money, because all these people actually suffer, they might have, sell their properties, and to pay for the agency fee and travel out there. So I hope as they stop them, there is also follow-up that hey, these kids are going to get their money from these agencies. So because that's a lot of money. The other thing I need to bring up is the new changes are really good, but I would go a step further. There is need to make sure that there is, when you send young kids to, say, Saudi Arabia or any other country, agencies have to be doing check-ins every often. So the first year you are there, of course, you're still struggling and all that. They should do check-ins every 3 months. What are these check-ins? It's just a simple phone call. I mean, look, we have internet now. Just a simple phone call. Are you okay? After that, maybe 6 months and all that. Those will help make sure that these kids are coping well and they're doing the job that they went there to do. Those are simple, but it can protect a lot of lives.
They do a lot.
Yes.
Let's take a break on this. 29 minutes to 8. Joel Kipchumba is our guest this morning. He comes from the land down under. Well, what happens? Men plunder. He is one of the leaders of the Kenyan diaspora community in Australia, where he lives and works, and he's here in the country. We are talking about welfare of Kenyan diaspora. Maisha Magic, right? I'll tell you right about it right after this break. So, Joel Kipchumba, keep it here. We are live on Spice FM, on KTN News and KTN Home. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
If a lion shows you its teeth, it doesn't mean it likes you.
It doesn't mean it likes you. It won't start. A liar calls as witness one who is either dead or far away. Say it in Kiswahili.
Ben low, nin inte, yenin der, ayu markati kadikta. You know this character called liar. He has disturbed people. So when you tell him, who are your witnesses, he will take you to a place where it is difficult to verify.
For someone like me who sweats a lot, I cannot survive there. Sweating is biblical. Good. And you must blame it on Adam, not me. Because Adam messed up and he was told, no, you fellow, you, by the sweat of your brow, thou shalt eat.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
Cloudy conditions this morning at 16 in Nairobi, highs of 27 and lows of 14, and we'll see lows of 14 in a cloudy Nakuru, going to highs of 26. 27 will be the high in a cloudy Nyeri at 16, and it's 14 and clear in Eldoret, going to highs of 26. We'll see highs of 30 in Mombasa, where it's cloudy at 24, and it's sunny at 24 in Malindi. We'll see highs of 30. 20 and clear in Kisumu with highs of 31, and we'll see highs of 30 in a clear Kakamega, currently at 19. The rain showers continue in Kampala at 20 with highs of 29, and in Dar es Salaam we'll see highs of 30, where it's cloudy at 24. 14 and mostly clear in Johannesburg. We're going to highs of 28, and we'll see highs of 31 in a mostly clear Lagos, currently at 25. It's 22 and cloudy in Kinshasa. Through Tuesday we'll see highs of 32 and lows of 22.
Spice up your life.
One that we will not have issues with this morning. Still folks getting into the city for this or that other thing. A little bit of movement on Juja Road today, and are trying to get through towards Moranga Road. You'll be fine getting into the city, and there's not much movement there, so everything looks okay. Thika Superhighway, Kiambu Road, your usual suspects, all at a lull this morning. Obviously, it's Utamaduni Day, and so we will not see as much traffic as we normally do. We're going to keep an eye on things, however, and just in case anything does rock up, we'll let you know. Spice FM, KE on X.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
News. Have you watched Kasiri on Maisha Magic Plus? It premiered this October. So 7:30 p.m. only on Maisha Magic Plus on DSTV channel 163 and Go TV channel 3. Imagine losing a father, then finding out that he had another wife. Talk about drama. Tune in to this local drama on Maisha Magic Plus, DSTV channel 163, Go TV channel 3. You can dial star 423 hash or download my DSTV or my Go TV app and get or stay connected. Terms and conditions apply. Here's a new one for you, City. Kasiri. Okay?
I've heard you.
Yeah.
Father dead.
Yes.
Father had another wife while he was still alive.
Yes.
Okay.
And you find out this after father dead.
And you also find you have siblings.
Bas.
And your mother finds out she has co-wife.
Bas.
A bigger bus.
Bas. Joel Kimchumba is still our guest in the studio. We're talking about diaspora issues and diaspora affairs. Joel, the Ministry of Labour and the government has also proposed something. We talked about welfare of Kenyans living in and working in the diaspora. So there are times when Kenyans who are living and working outside the country find themselves in positions of distress and they don't have close family members to sort them out, to help them to come in. So this proposal is to establish a migrant workers welfare fund. You've heard about it?
Yes.
How much have you heard about it?
Not much really, but I guess some of us in diaspora have really talked about this.
Okay.
And it's something that most of us are advocating for.
Take us through the welfare issues that you deal with, for example, as a leader of the diaspora community in Australia. Mm-hmm. Some of the welfare things that you're dealing with on a regular basis, and how the establishment of a formal fund would then come in to help.
So the issues might sound minute to a lot of people, but to a child who's been sent to school there, it's huge because you have no parent or anyone to turn to. So, for example, you've come there, you don't have a job, or you're at work and then you get injured and you cannot go to work for, say, 2 months, 3 months. That life is not sustainable. So we've also had issues with, young girls, getting children, and then the people who are responsible are not there. How do you help them? We've had issues of mental health issues because of stresses. There's a lot of stresses there. So these are the issues that we look at in our organization. So how do we help them? So when it comes to someone passing on, we contribute certain amount of money that will at least help in supporting the families. It's the same goes for these people also who have gotten injured and they cannot go back to work immediately. We might call on other Kenyans to host them. That's a lot of help. Or we take food that doesn't expire. So it sounds minute, but it's not. It's life and death situation there. Also things to do with if someone is pregnant and cannot raise a child there, is there an option of sending back home? They stay for a while, say 1 year, and then come back. We've had 2 occasions where we've done that, and they've come back and continued with school. And you see now that changes the life of not only that person but also those who are there. There's help instead of just going to the streets and putting yourself in other dangers.
The proposal here is the establishment of the Migrant Workers Welfare Fund, is where all of you people who are living and working abroad will be contributing mandatorily to this fund. Okay? And now you're putting aside some money into this fund that will sort out some issues. For example, you need to come back home. It's a medical emergency. It sorts you out. You have been repatriated. It's helped you coming back home. In the event of death and the body needs to be brought back home, it also comes in handy. It also offers some sort of medical insurance for workers who are Kenyan workers in these countries. Does that address the real pain points for the migrant workers?
It does, but a government doesn't know how many Kenyans are out there, or are they even going to get these Kenyans to contribute. So really, that's a dream that's just, it's not going to happen.
It's interesting, Joel, because then I think it goes back to the fundamentals that you were speaking about. So I hear you saying essentially then that the act of creating this fund or this particular policy, essentially, from what you're saying, is invalid if you don't have the initial processes that are necessary for you to know what's going on. Do you know how many people, let's take Australia as an example, because that's what you resonate with now.
Yep.
Do you know how many Kenyans are in Australia? True figures.
Yes.
Are you in liaison with the Kenyan High Commission, Kenyan ambassador in Australia to have this information? Are they doing the due diligence to make sure that they know who is there? Do you know how many are there in a working capacity?
Yes.
Do you know how many are there in school? Do you know how many children were born of Kenyans in Australia? At that point, with that information, then you can now come out to say, in an event that 1, 2, 3 would happen, this is how then funds would flow. So are you saying that that's all nice, it's great, but we're building castles in the sky? You don't have the fundamentals. So would you be more comfortable if they went through that process, and not just you, but anybody really, if they went through that process of making sure that you have, the tent hooks in the ground first, before you now say, let's build on it, it would make a lot more sense than for everybody else.
Yeah. So I think, look, Kenyans in diaspora are very organized people. They have their own groups and they know why they are in those groups. Now, government and this mandatory contribution is going to be a long haul. Look, you will have to deal with issues to do with navigating the laws of that country. I mean, not even my employer is going to recognize that the Kenyan government wants money from me, because I mean they will have to go to my employer, right? My payslip to be directed to whatever the fund they are establishing. So that's going to be a hard one to do. Even so, navigating the laws of that country in itself is going to be a whole tall order to do. Also, remember, people who are there grown-ups. They have their own issues to deal with. So if you are Kenyan there, my advice would be you join a group, be part of the community. If you're isolating yourself, really, then you're exposing yourself to a lot of dangers out there. But government should actually talk to Kenyans and encourage them to form
all these welfare groups.
Yeah, welfare groups.
Where they can support them.
Absolutely. And
I see this thing working, though, in instances where the government of Kenya has signed a deal with another government. For example, the deal that is between the government of Kenya and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or the United Arab Emirates, where there's a clear formula where they're saying this is how Kenyan workers shall come to this country.
Absolutely.
There will be agents who are recognized and registered in Saudi Arabia. There will be agents who are recognized and registered in Kenya.
Yes.
And these are the agents that will be sending workers to Saudi Arabia through these channels. So there it's easier to manage because you already know this is the job, this is how much they are earning. The deal between Kenya and the UK, for example, for nurses, that could work.
Absolutely.
Because it's clear, it's government to government. We need X number of nurses, send them here. So it's easier. Now, the ones, of course, that you're saying are difficult are where Kipchumba found himself a job while in Kenya, and he got an employer in Australia who told him, come and work here. Now, that may be difficult. But then, how do you advise the government to navigate this? Because you can say, there is need, yes. It is the how that may be different. Now, as a leader, what's your solution?
I think the government should do just a few things. One, ensure that, the Kenyan consular services are close to the people and in constant conversation with the Kenyan people. I think we are tired of government talking to us. It's time for the government to hear what we're saying. They have never done that. So once they do that, and then we are able to have a conversation on the direction that Kenyans in diaspora want to take. For example, a good starter is we have high cost of sending money home, 7.9%. Other countries send it at 5% or less. And the World Bank is actually advocating for 5%. So Kenyan government is way behind in that, really. And they can work with local banks. It doesn't have to be other institutions from elsewhere. Kenyan banks are able to deliver that service. So consular services, to be in close contact with Kenyans, a regular conversation. And, these appointments of ambassadors based on political affiliation is not going to solve all these issues. We might have all these dreams, but it's not going to happen if we're still doing things based on politics.
Let me ask you a question. We have an embassy in Australia, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Which other cities do we have consular services?
So we have, at the moment in Australia, we just have one in Canberra.
That's one?
Yes, and it serves both Australia and New Zealand and the surrounding islands. Yes.
No. Hey!
Yep.
Man.
An entire continent.
Yes. That is a lot of work. When you say you would like them to be in touch, the groups that exist within Australia, what mechanisms have they put in place to be able to communicate and to be in touch with the consular services that we have in Australia?
So we are able to actually have regular meetings, before Corona and after Corona. So I guess during Corona, we were not able to have any meetings whatsoever. So in the recent times, we've started, organizing Kenyan community events where we've invited the ambassador to Australia. And he's been able to actually turn up all the time that these events are there. And we've had fruitful conversation on what Kenyans in Australia want. Issues to do, for example, police clearance, certificate of good conduct. It's a big issue in Australia because when you're changing your visa from student to permanent worker, you really need it. It takes about 3 months to get it. So really, it's a long time to wait for 3 months to get certificate of good conduct. So really, and you have to send your fingerprints all the way to Kenya, and you have to use the Kenyan embassy. So that process slows it down really bad.
I can understand the mechanisms that are required by governments for Kenyans living abroad, obviously. Absolutely important. But Wairimo brings up an interesting point here and says that, there are lots of people who've left the country and actually are not interested in having the government involved in their affairs whatsoever, that they've sorted out their ways to get there, they've sorted out how they've lived, they've sorted out everything concerning their lives, and they're not interested in this interference.
The one government out of their business.
That's why they left in the first place, right?
So they think.
Exactly. Is that the case? Or can you really be outside and then not have this support from government? I mean, that you're obviously asking for, that even though, yes, you're out there working, schooling, etc., outside of the boundaries of Kenya, that there's still support from essentially your umbilical cord needs to be connected to Kenya still. Is that the case? Or are we saying, look, here, no, thank you very much, we're done, we're all right? What would be the overall... You know why? Because even as that comment has come, I see a situation whereby if the desire is so strong and if the clamor then even stronger, and then you have people who are mushrooming around an idea, that usually we see that the action that takes place as a result of that continuous agitation then is positive. So what's these two competing ideas? Which one then takes precedence of which one then takes, presence over the other? Leave me alone or please be involved so that we can help?
So a duty of any government, any good government, is to protect the citizenry. So basically, even I understand the sentiments from the viewer. Look, we want government out of our business. Even myself, I want government out of my business.
When it comes to taxes.
You will explain to us what you mean by that, but please go on.
Yeah. So this thing of micromanaging what we're doing and all that, the government is to protect.
Sure.
That's all we want. Simply protect people in diaspora. And when there's a distress call, can you be there? That's your job. The rest, you leave it up to us. The other one that government actually needs to come in is basically remittances. Just work on that. If they solve that issue and they solve issue of debt of our monies when we send home, they should actually really ensure that and I support the idea that there is control of where the money goes when you send money, because a lot of us have sent money home, and there's pictures of certain building coming from somewhere, and then when you come back home it's not your building. So that's really the saddest thing. So I guess that's where the protection needs to come from. But saying that,
how do you get protected from your own family?
It's your own relative. Send the money to.
I blame the diaspora people for doing that. Really,
I don't think it's so much a question of blame.
Yeah.
No. When you start blaming, you're not really looking at how to resolve the problem.
Yeah.
You've lived in Kenya.
Yes.
The government, by and large, is not in your business.
Yeah, absolutely.
In fact, so much so that they let you take care of healthcare, they let you take care of education. They actually let you be.
Do your thing.
So you cannot say that the government is in your business. They're actually out of it completely.
How much more when you leave?
Now, when you leave, you're so far away, they can't possibly be in your business. Anyway, as they say on a light note, the understanding your government for what it is and then wanting to see a change and what it can become. Those of you in the diaspora have a wonderful opportunity to replicate that very thing you want to see in this government. Because if you, as Kenyans in the diaspora, are organized to the point where you can, all these kinks that we have as Kenyans and all these problems, if you can resolve them in the places that you are, you will be the model that Kenya needs and requires. But if you export these nasty habits that we have in this country to some other country, okay, first of all, you'll be deported, okay? They'll not put up with it. Here we understand, and when you behave badly, we say, that's one of us. This is just our own behavior. Why do I say this, Given how important the diaspora and the remittances have become to this country, the largest foreign exchange earner, you do have a say.
Absolutely.
That say can only be potent if you organize yourselves. And I mean well, so that when your leadership goes and speaks, let's say to the ambassador, the ambassador knows exactly what is being told. And you don't stop with Australia. You go to India. You go to all those countries that are around there. Then, the very things that you want, as you said...
India is around Australia.
It's 8 hours.
No. Bro.
Just around.
There's some water in between.
But it's over there.
India.
We both have the Indian Ocean. So.
Yes. Now, okay, let's bring it home. America.
Point is organization.
My point, exactly. And don't let the water board interfere with it. I'm simply saying that because you are where you are, the thing that seems to preoccupy the minds of people who are in the diaspora are the problems that we have at home and how it is the government doesn't provide an enabling environment. And yet, you can do all that, a lot of that for yourselves.
I agree.
Now, when you do that, as I said, it's not complicated. You then have a very powerful voice.
We've tried. Look what
are you giving up?
No, not really. No, not anytime soon. No.
Yes.
Look how when the campaign season starts.
Oh.
How many politicians come?
No. Don't go there.
Hear me out.
Okay. Let me hear you out.
So, these guys come. We all sit down. We give them our demands. We even give demands of, just hear me out, of appointments for example, the diaspora affairs. Thank goodness Njogu was in diaspora and she understands the issues that people in diaspora face.
Yeah.
But that's not enough. That's just one position. We are, like you said earlier, we contribute the largest foreign income for Kenya. I think we the only second to horticulture exports.
It's the highest. There's no question about it.
No, yeah,
There's no other foreign exchange earner like remittances from the diaspora. There's none.
Yeah, so we deserve a seat. And it's sad that the Kenyan government normally goes out there looking for other investors, yet Kenyans in diaspora send all this money.
Yeah.
How about you look for these diasporans, put them together in a group, and it's not really the job of government to do that. I guess it's, like you said, ourselves to put our
See what happens when you shock me the statements you make. I even go about pouring my coffee. You see, what you have just expressed is how Kenyans deal with issues. You are still looking for the government to do this for you. And my entire position was move away from that way of thinking. If you want to give the politicians as an example, ask yourself, how does a politician in Kenya become powerful? Usually, he has a support base. I'm saying he because predominantly it's the he's. You have a support base that doesn't move. It then gives you what you call bargaining power. Now, diaspora has an even stronger bargaining power. It's called money.
Yes, and knowledge.
You don't go around begging for positions. Please, when you guys are sitting, just consider us, because we're in the diaspora, and we're giving you this amount of money. No. You have a far more serious conversation about it because the money is needed. You're not well organized. You only think you are. You're well organized for social welfare issues.
Absolutely.
But you're not properly organized to be a strong voice. Not yet.
Yeah. I think what I've seen, some of us are still, in some small stages. But I've seen people who have really stayed there. They form organizations such as KDA and KCA. Now, the problem with these organizations, they tend to concentrate among the elites. So the business people, those who are families who have settled there, they don't reach out to the new workers, the new migrant workers who've just come there. They don't reach out to students. So I guess that's where the problem is. The few elites, and they normally tend to be associated to or brothers and sisters of politicians. So that's where you're blocked, really. They have occupied these spaces.
Which part of Kenya do you come from? Which is your constituency? There's a reason I'm asking.
Yeah, Chesumei.
Okay.
Which is in Nandi.
Yes. I know it is. Who is your MP?
Polo. So Polo is
he's a new MP, is he not?
Yes, yeah, he is.
What happened to the old one?
He's now ambassador to Australia.
Okay. Now, the ambassador is the ambassador because he was first an MP.
Yes.
How did he become an MP? He endeared himself to people and they voted him in. Once he became to parliament, people got to know him. I'm asking you that question because it's like, as Kenyans, we've never quite understood, one, the power that we are given under the Constitution, and how it is, all these people we complain about, how it is we participate very actively in giving these people prominence and in keeping them where they are.
Yeah. They take it.
It's our power. We actually give it to them. We don't even donate it briefly. We actually give it to them. I am saying you don't have the shackles that we have because as we are here and we're living here, we are these people on a daily basis. The new and clean start that you have gives you an opportunity to do many things that ordinarily you would not be able to do with the ease that you do it abroad. Now, you live abroad and you know how best you can organize yourselves to become a strong voice.
Yeah.
Strong voices, if you're in the diaspora, tends to be lobbies.
Yes.
People who know how to lobby. There are people who are good at it.
Yes.
So that your matters become... We've spoken to people who are in America, like you.
Yeah.
They seem to be organizing themselves better.
Absolutely, I agree.
Yes.
It's because of experience.
Precisely. And they've been there for a longer time.
Yes.
Perhaps you should form some association with them to figure out how they go about their business.
And take advantage of that.
Thank you, Eric.
It's not for lack of trying.
Keep trying, Joel.
I think
and if you're trying one way, it's not working, try another.
Look,
and keep doing. In fact, very many comments that are coming in, and people are appreciating the work that you do as one of the leaders of the Kenyan diaspora in Australia. Joel Kipchumba, we thank you very much for joining us today. Asante sana for joining us. Joel Kipchumba is a Kenyan who lives and works in Australia. He's one of the leaders of the Kenyan community in that country. He's been our guest this morning. Happy Utamaduni Day. It's 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is News. I'm Dennis Aseto. Azimio leader Raila Odinga has insisted that Mombasa County leadership must be involved in the government's plan to privatize Mombasa Port. Odinga has also said that the privatization of the port activities without involving the residents of the county is a violation of the law.
Ukiongea juu ya mambo ya concessioning ya bandari ya Mombasa, county government ya Mombasa mpaka iye mshikadau pale. Mpaka hiyo mshikadau pale, na ikiwa kimiko board of directors, Mombasa County must have representation.
A similar statement has been made by Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Sharif Nasir, who says that the county's leadership should be involved as they are the main shareholders of the port.
Na tukizungumza hatuzungumzi ya kwa tunapinga maendeleo. Hatupingi mambo ya upanuaji wa bandari. Lakini tunapinga kutoweza kuwekwa katika hesabu, kwa sababu tusipowekwa katika hesabu sasa, baada ya kalamu ishaweza kukauka, wino kishaweza kukauka katika ile karatasi, sahauni watu wa Mombasa.
It should be noted that President William Ruto has been saying that the government aims to cooperate with private institutions to strengthen activities of the Port of Mombasa and not to privatize it. The government spokesperson Isaac Mwaura has rejected statements that there is a rift between President William Ruto and his deputy Rigathi Gachagua. Mwaura said that there is no division within the Kenya Kwanza government and that those spreading disinformation are liars.
I don't think so. Sometimes it's a creation of the media. Deliberate, creation of that rift. Because I think when I listen to the president and the deputy president, they are reading from the same script.
Nominated Member of Parliament Sabina Sheikh has lost her position as the Deputy Minority Whip in the National Assembly. A case filed by Sheikh in a Kiambu court to challenge Azimio La Umoja's decision to remove her from the position was thrown. Consequently, Embakasi West MP Mark Mwenje is said to be the new Deputy Minority Whip in the 13th Parliament. The Jubilee Party has been in a protracted legal battle over leadership, with the Sheikh-led faction fighting the Uhuru-led wing to control the party and millions of shillings in the kitty. Kimilili MP Didmas Baraza has asked the UDA National Executive Council to dismiss Acting Secretary General Cleophas Malala on claims he is an ODM mole. Baraza says Malala has continued to disrespect National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula and Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi by holding a series of meetings in Western Kenya aimed at inciting the people against the two.
I have evidence. I have been furnished by M-Pesa statements. I have been furnished by bank statement that indicates that this young man is receiving money from ODM sympathizers to wreck the Kenya Kwanza coalition from within. This is very evident if the statements that he has been making for the last 3 months is something to go by. One, Cleophas Wakungu Malala doesn't understand the efforts that our President William Samoei Ruto and very many leaders put to bring Musalia Mudavadi and Moses Wetangula within the Kenya Kwanza coalition. But he has continued to be used by the ODM and her sympathizers to incite the people of Western Kenya against the duo.
Two top aides to Ugandan opposition leader Bobi Wine were among several people arrested during a raid on an event marking the country's Independence Day yesterday. Heavily armed soldiers and police surrounded the headquarters of Wine's National Unity Party in Kamokia, a low-income area of the capital Kampala, and roads were blocked off to stop vehicles from entering. The action came just days after Wine, who unsuccessfully challenged President Yoweri Museveni in 2021 elections, declared that he was under house arrest after being seized by security agents on his return from a trip abroad last Thursday. And President William Ruto has assured Kisumu Governor Nyong'o that the county will host some Africa Cup of Nation marches. The president's statements come days after Nyong'o and his Kakamega counterpart Fernandez Baraza raised their concerns over the omission of the region from hosting the showbiz.
I want to confirm to you, Professor, that we have taken into account the place of Kisumu in hosting at least some of the tournaments that we have spread across the country.
This is Newsweb. Dennis Salcedo. Good morning.
.5 Spice FM, Kisumu.
Has anything changed this hour? What we're looking at building up in different parts of the city? Nothing really. I don't think, again, that we'll see that. Some movement right around Westlands, and that's coming off the expressway. And maybe you see a little bit of movement here and there later on today as folks then again out and about. But for now, not much really. United Nations Avenue has some in and outbound traffic. We're going to keep an eye on that and see what happens later. But it shouldn't be anything too worrying, at least not for now. Outer Ring looks good as it does on the Thika Superhighway. And then Uhuru Highway, you begin into the city. If you're Mombasa Road, 3 minutes to the CBD today, but please be careful. We're not looking for any accidents. Let's talk still. Spice FM KE on X and keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation
the only
Room.
Way to start your day. If you're on Spice FM, on KTN Home, on KTN News, on YouTube, and Facebook, thank you very much for choosing this as the way to start your day and to celebrate your Utamaduni Day. Happy Utamaduni Day from wherever you are locked in. Are you ready for the 29th of October? We will be running.
The Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon takes place on the 29th. It's a special one because it's the 20th edition. 20 years ago, there was a dream to put Nairobians into running mode to then be able to help those who are less fortunate in society. So you can come out and run for your health. Indeed, you can. Log on to www.nairobimarathon.com, register with 2,000 shillings, and then get ready to run in the physical race come the 29th of October. If you're running the virtual race, you do it a week before. You can find all the information that you need about this marathon on that. Are you running the 5K, 10K, 21 or 42K? Whichever what that you do, you're doing this in support of the Future Makers program, where all proceeds go to. Mm-hmm. And it's ensuring that young people, especially girls and those living with disability, have the chance to learn, earn, and grow.
Indeed. 2,000 only.
Yes.
Bas, we're doing that. Now, yesterday, some 2 shows premiered on Maisha Magic Plus City. One is Kasiri, we've just talked about it. Father dies, you discover father had another family after father has died. There's another one called Zari, which also premiered yesterday, and they'll be showing 7:30 p.m. on Monday to Wednesday. Zari is premiering on the 23rd of October, rather not yesterday, 23rd of October at 8:30 p.m. It'll be showing Monday to Friday. To watch these local drama series, tune into Maisha Magic Plus on DSTV channel 163, Go TV channel 3. Maisha Magic Plus is now available on DSTV Access and Go TV Plus. Download by dialing *423#, or you can download my DSTV or my Go TV app to stay connected. You want to know about Zari? Zari, You know what they say, what is in the dark eventually comes light sooner or later.
Mm-hmm. Is that not what happened with the previous one?
But with yeah, Kasiri. Yeah, it's also the same thing that's happening with Zari. Things that are happening
in darkness and then comes to light. And the other one was a little more dramatic because one moment you have mother, siblings. Father dies, you find you have more siblings, and you have a mama mdogo.
You have another mother.
And your mother discovers she has a co-wife. Now that...
bit traumatizing.
Why?
Why?
Bas. Now, we are blessed to have with us the ambassador of Palestine to Kenya, the Palestinian Authority to Kenya, Hazim Shabat, is in the studio. Yesterday, we hosted his counterpart from Israel. Now, today, we want to hear from the other side, the Palestinian voice in the war in besieged Gaza. Good morning, Brother Ambassador.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Thank you very much and happy Utamaduni Day.
Happy Utamaduni Day to you. That's the hot seat of the Situation Room. How does it feel?
Warm enough.
Good. City has the day's proverb.
Yes.
And this week's proverbs are from the United Republic of Tanzania.
Yes. This is a country that is within the Great Lakes region, okay? And it's the third largest country on the continent of Africa.
Wow.
Third largest.
By landmass.
By landmass, yes.
Tanzania is huge.
No, Tanzania is massive. It is massive. Right. Simple proverb for a holiday, something easy to understand, easy on the mind. Every bird flies with its own wings.
Every bird flies with its own wings. But Ambassador, when you hear this proverb, what's your interpretation of it?
I agree with it. Of course, every nation, every people build whatever civilization or culture or economy based on their own work. Definitely birds are helped with the winds and to be able to fly, but it's at the end of the day, it's their wings that carry them to achieve or go wherever they want to go. So I believe it's a very wise proverb in this way.
It's what they have within them and their own willingness and power.
Exactly that.
Very good. Let's start by defining this geographical area that we call Palestine. Where is it? Where is Palestine?
Palestine is the area that connects basically Africa to Asia. It's the first thing that you will have to pass through if you're walking out of Africa on land to Asia or any part anywhere else in the world. Palestine, of course, throughout history, it was a coherent geographical area that has been, of course, defined throughout history during the Ottoman Empire, during the Roman era, and even in the Bible, we find a clear reference to Palestine as a defined, well-defined area. Unfortunately, we shared the same history like Africa, in which we had colonizers and they had plans for our country and solving their European problems at the expense of other nations, and the Jewish dilemma and the atrocities that were done in Europe were solved at the expense of our people, exporting that problem outside the European borders and creating a country for the European Jews. Because Palestine throughout history and until the establishment of Israel and even after until this day has its own Jewish community, Palestinian, Arab, Jewish community. Before the creation of Israel, there was no religious tensions that existed in Palestine. On the contrary, in the First World War and before, all immigrations that were happening from the wars and the atrocities that were going in Europe against the Jews and other minorities in Europe were migrating into Palestine, and that's why you will find Palestine very rich in ethnic composition. We have people with Armenian backgrounds, with Crimean backgrounds. We have people, of course, Jews have been migrating into Palestine for the past 100 years or so. So we have never been a place in which that was intolerant or inclusive to all the composition, because Palestine has always witnessed influx of different civilization throughout history. Crusades were there, Ottomans were there, Mongols were there, Pharaohs were the pharaonic times, Egyptian pharaonic times. Palestine was always invaded because of its strategic position. It became the crossing point for every civilization that was expanding, either east one time or west one time or wherever. So we are a people of many ethnic backgrounds.
Ambassador, I hear you defining Palestine as one huge geographical region.
No, it's not.
Are there defined boundaries?
Yes. Historical Palestine or British Mandate Palestine, under the British, it was 27,000 kilometers. We have made the brief decision in 1988. The PLO has made the brief decision that this conflict could not continue, and we thought to adopt the two-state system. And we have, in the peace agreement that we have signed, or the peace accords known as the Oslo Accords in 1993, put in black and white that we accept to share our historical land in a share of 78% Israel and 22% Palestine. So we have accepted 22% of our historical homeland in pursuit of a settlement to the conflict, and that we can move in to a tomorrow in which everybody can prosper and end the conflict. This area is demarcated not only in the Palestinian narrative. This is what the Security Council has approved as Security Council resolutions. This is the foreign policy of the United States. This is the foreign policy of the EU and its member states, Japan, China, Russia, Arab countries. Everybody who's involved in international relations accepts this reality that the 1967 borders is Palestinian territory, and that's why you hear the term Palestinian territory, to distinguish between where Israel stops and where Palestine starts. Now, since 1967, Israel has continued its occupation in defiance to Security Council resolutions. So we have now 56 years with an ongoing occupation, despite repeated UN Security Council resolutions, European Council declarations, Arab League calls, Arab League initiatives, our own peace agreement that was signed in 1993, in which we have put in black and white accepting Israel's right to live in peace and security under defined borders, within defined borders, and to revoke use of military means or violence as a means of solving the conflict. And that's why we went into a 5-year interim period of negotiations in which we were supposed to show that, while Israel is supposed through the 5 years to start rolling back its military forces from the Palestinian cities and whatever. I heard your previous speaker yesterday, the ambassador of Israel, saying that there is areas A, B, and C. Yes, this classification came on what is the first area that will be evacuated, which is like cities like Ramallah and Nablus and whatever. And then you had areas that are B, in which during this interim period, it was agreed that Israel will maintain the policing and preserving order, but the Palestinians will be immediately running the administrative role in the B areas. C areas, which are the furthest in the process, remained in the hands of the Israelis militarily and administratively.
Why?
Because they did not want to relinquish the territory immediately. They said, okay, we will divide it into 3 categories that we will be doing over the 5-year period. For us, we had trust in the international community's, determination to see this process through. And 5 years in a conflict that has lasted for almost 100 years is not a very long time. And we were confident of our ability to provide a model that the entire world can be proud of in terms of governance and rule of law and so forth. So the time factor of 5 years to be tackling issues that have brewed over 100 years and the complications of disengagement between an occupation that has been so much entrenched and a newly established form of governance and it required some time to handle that, especially that many things were on the table, like the 6 million refugees that have been expelled from Israel, from their properties, the issue of Jerusalem, how are we planning to divide Jerusalem, all of these issues were on the table, so we did not want to pressure ourselves in the time and we accepted the 5-year model as a time frame for concluding this. Now what we are finding or as a reality is that Israel is now saying that, sorry, I can only give you the areas A and I will keep 60% of the 22% that were the basis of negotiations.
Balozi, can I step in here and ask you, essentially what we are saying here is that there was an agreement, the 5-year period has elapsed,
in 1999, yes.
Yeah, obviously, a while ago. And we then saw, even after the elapsing of this 5-year period, where these agreements were made for the areas of occupation A, B, and C, administratively, Palestine then was supposed to take control, administratively. And then we would see that the involvement of Israeli army general in that area then was also supposed to cease over time.
That's true.
What we are saying now, according to you, is that since the elapsing of that 5-year period, 1999 until present day, there has been a back and forth over the agreements that were made in terms of what was supposed to happen. Both sides ratified these agreements. Am I understanding?
Yes.
Okay. And these were also then made in the presence of world bodies. We're talking about the Arab League, we're talking about the European Council. It was to the knowledge of the United Nations Security Council, as well as the United Nations in general. This was accepted.
That's very true.
Would we say now that the heightened, I want to call it tensions, but it's a lot more than that from what we've seen over the last 30 years then, beyond the 5 years, over the last 30 years has been because the agreements that were made over this 5-year period for the occupied lands then were broken. Is that the case?
Exactly that. And in the meantime, it's not only broken and people were living their lives normally or whatever. They were subjected to a horrible occupation regime of humiliation, deprivation of livelihoods and killings on daily basis. This year alone, before the tragic events that we are witnessing today, we have 250 Palestinians killed since the beginning of the year. Nobody has heard of them. Nobody spoke anything about them at the hands of the Israeli army and the Israeli settlers in the occupied territory. 47 of them are children. So it's not an occupation that is just, observing from far away. Every aspect of Palestinian life is dominated by the Israeli military. Our officials, my president, if he needs to leave Ramallah to meet the Kenyan president, he cannot do so without the approval of the Israeli army. Every bottle of water that we consume, every medicine that we bring into our country goes through the Israeli system and is approved by the Israeli system. Our tax money, if I import a product from Kenya, it has to go through the Israeli ports. And I have to pay the Israeli government 3% of the customs of what I will regain in customs for that product for their administration, as their administrative cost for being my occupier and being the one who's responsible for allowing things in and out. And even that custom money, I don't get it automatically. It depends on the political will of the Israeli government. If they are happy with us, they transfer it. If they do not, it's withheld. As we are sitting now, $800 million of our tax money is withheld by Israel. $800 million.
In your opinion, because it's important,
Yeah.
in your opinion, why does the Palestinian Authority believe that the Israeli government, army, and all its, agencies have held strong to the control to date?
Because this is the occupation project. It's a project. It's a political project. I'm sorry, the signatory of the Oslo Agreement, Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin, was shot, killed, assassinated by the Israeli Jewish right wing in 1995. They assassinated him. The person who signed with Arafat the peace accord was assassinated on the hands of the Jewish Israelis. The right wing, of course, from them. The people who are represented today in the government. Prime Minister Netanyahu, at no point in history has he shied away from saying that there are no rights for the Palestinians, there is nothing called the Palestinian state, will never relinquish territory for the Palestinians, and I'll make sure that there is no prospect for peace. He said it in his campaign. This is on TV, this is in Israeli print media, for anybody who wants to look a bit deeper. The Minister of Internal Security, the one who's responsible for managing the occupied territory in the Israeli government. He's a member of the Kach movement. Kach movement is classified in the American legal system as a terrorist organization. This is not my words. I have it all here in black and white and from international sources, so you can always refer back to it.
Yeah. Without ignoring, of course, because like you said, many things then did happen after the 5-year elapse in 1999. Many things have happened until 2023, and that's for sure. We have seen there have been uprisings, there's been conflict, there's been tension. Yes, there's been death, and the conflict continues. But come this weekend, we then saw action that was very different from what we had seen before. Many words have been used to describe it. It was planned. It was a terrorist attack on Israel.
Yeah.
We saw grotesque pictures and videos of the things that happened. What triggered this latest, these latest events over
56 years of occupation. It's basically 56 years of continuous occupation, day in and day out. We have been warning for now 2 consecutive years. My president in the General Assembly this year and the year before and the year before that asked explicitly, we call for international protection to stand between us and the Israelis, because the amount of Israeli atrocities that are taking place on daily basis in all cities, not only in Gaza, and East Jerusalem, in Nablus, in Hebron, in Jericho, and everywhere that the Israeli settlers protected by the armies exist, our people are suffering. Our people are prohibited from reaching hospitals, to schools, and these are not my words. Please refer to the reports of the United Nations in Palestine. You will find this in black and white and in video, all of these violations that have been taking place. This is brewing. The tragic events that have happened. Okay, there is nothing more to describe it than very tragic, very disturbing developments that took place. I can only blame Israel for it. I don't care who pulled the trigger, but who has been feeding for that incident to happen, or that event to happen, or these atrocities to happen.
Excellency, let me ask you this question. Are you saying that given what you've described as the horrors of Israeli occupation, are you suggesting or are you saying that it is the situation you've described that has enabled Hamas to grow and become what it is?
That's very true. The actions of the Israeli government over 56 years has been continuously radicalizing the Palestinian society. If you are a person who's humiliated on your way in and out of work, I don't think that you will develop to be a pacifist. if your house is being bombarded and every other year you have to bury people of your family or your children or whatever under the rubbles, you will not be a pacifist. If you are in the case of Gaza, Gaza has been under full military closure for 17 years. Full military closure.
What does that mean?
That there is no bolt, there is no screw, there is no bar of chocolate, there is no biscuit that enters the Gaza Strip that is not allowed in through the checkpoints that Israel has approved, or the entry points that Israel has approved into the Gaza Strip.
For 19 years.
17 years.
17 years. Why did this start 17 years ago?
This is when Hamas was in control of the Gaza Strip.
Okay.
Israel has closed the entire Gaza Strip. Not that it has not done it under the PLO leadership or the Palestinian government's leadership. It has done it so, but it has thought, okay, we have now Hamas in power. This would give us a full control and a full excuse to do whatever we want and continue to be supported, of course, by Western governments. Now, anything that Hamas has done in the past few days that you have seen on TV, it has done under the full control of Israel, while they were under the full control of Israel, under the full surveillance of Israel. So basically, the message here is that military might and suppression is not the recipe for security and peace.
In the region.
Or anywhere else. The border, the fence that separates the Gaza Strip from Israel, because you have on two sides it's Israel, and then you have the sea, and then you have the Egyptian border. On these two sides, the fence that Israel has erected, the latest technology, whatever, to stop any infiltrators, whatever, costing $4 billion. You have seen the images collapse. So basically, fences, technology, machine guns, warplanes are not the recipe for peace and security for anyone in Palestine or outside Palestine or in Africa or anywhere. It's good neighborly relations, respect of international law and applicability of international and accountability under international law. This is what brings mutual respect and good neighborly relations. There is an international law that governs Palestinians, Israelis, Kenyans, Italians, French, every country under the sun should be under the same yardstick of international law. Not countries with impunity can do whatever they want without being accountable under international law, not Palestinian will, but international law. That is the only recipe for peace and security.
Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 9. Utamaduni Day. We are hosting Ambassador Hazim Shabat. He's the ambassador of the Palestinian administration in Kenya. He's here today talking about the events and what's going on in Gaza, the Palestinian voice on the war in the besieged Gaza region. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. Keep it right here. We'll be back shortly after we take a look at the weather and traffic.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's critical that people pay taxes. But then taxation has to have a limit. When you start overtaxing people beyond certain limit, then this is now we call robbery with violence.
We are all struggling, but we don't show. If you're not doing well, shame on you. But you have to say, I'm broke and I'm struggling. We are not okay until everybody is okay.
We are pretending to have political parties. Why don't we just be honest? And we say, these are the Luyas, these are the Kambas, these are the Kikuyus, and we find ourselves in Kenya.
You know, with politics and leadership, no matter what you do, there will always be a complaint. There will always be the assumption that you're either stealing or you're not doing things right. As a leader, don't fear. If you know you're doing the right thing, you've thought about it, you've got an expert advice, do it, then understand later.
This country, we don't need prayers. Prayers is between you and God. Good governance,
and thinkers who care about the country and not their stomach.
That's what we need.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
16 degrees and sunny conditions in Nairobi, highs of 27. It's cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 27, and we'll see highs of 27 as well. In a sunny Nyeri, it's sunny at 18 in Eldoret and sunny conditions in Mombasa. You guessed it, sunny as well in Malindi at 27. And we'll see highs of 31 in a sunny Kisumu with highs of 30 in a sunny Kakamega, 21 and cloudy after the rain in Kampala, and 27 and sunny in Dar es Salaam. The sun is up at 15 in Johannesburg and it mostly clear in Lagos at 24. It's 23 in Kinshasa and mostly cloudy. All right, one we will not have an issue with today. Most of our roads free and clear in and out of the city today. I don't think we're going to jump into anything today. Just at your junctions, probably holding up here and there, but nothing to worry about. You've been in and out real quick. We're keeping an eye on things, though, and we can talk on Spice FM KE on X.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Our conversation continues with His Excellency Ambassador Hazim Shabat, the Palestinian ambassador to Kenya. He's in the studio. We're talking about the unfolding situation in the Middle East. Ambassador, what's the relationship between the government of Palestine and Hamas?
Well, we are at odds for a very long time because the Palestinian National Movement and the PLO basically and the Palestinian government have decided long time ago to adopt the legal fare with the occupation rather than warfare. We have chosen to battle this occupation in the international forum. In the General Assembly, in the Security Council, in the ICJ, in the ICC, in the Human Rights Council. These are the platforms that we have chosen to force this occupation out of our country and apply international legitimacy in Palestine.
Okay.
Hamas is a more radical group. And their take on things is very different. But they are not the government of Palestine. They do not represent the Palestinian people in any way. It's a group in Palestine, a part of the Palestinian fabric, which believes that tackling this occupation or fighting this occupation is best done through military means and fighting it back with arms.
So your differences are in the approach?
Definitely.
But not in the end goal?
No.
The end goal is to end what you call the occupation?
It's not what I call. This is what the Security Council called occupation, defined as occupation. This is what every government, including the government of Kenya, considers as a foreign occupation of Palestine. So it's not our perspective on things that we believe we are occupied. No, this is what the international community unanimously, except of course Israel, agrees on.
Okay. Are you saying the Palestinian National Authority does not in any way condone any form of uprising against the occupation?
No, not uprising. The use of violent means against innocent civilians.
So violent
innocent,
uprising is what you're against. And this is by, how do you define violence? By use of arms?
Because uprising, okay, an uprising does not necessarily mean taking arms against the Israelis.
That's true.
I can go into a demonstration, that's an uprising.
Yes.
I can carry banners or even throw stones or throw sticks or whatever, something that's happening in football fields all around Europe, and still people are not shot dead in the streets for that. So uprising is one thing, and violence against innocent civilians is another. We have repeatedly condemned, over many, many years, when any civilian Israeli has fallen. But while we were doing so, Israeli officials were bragging about how many Palestinians they were managed. This is on TV, this is in the papers, this is not, don't take my word for it, that they have to use force. Only yesterday we heard the Minister of Defense of Israel saying we will cut water, we will cut food, we will cut electricity, we will cut petrol against these people. They are human animals. If you have a statesman using this is recorded, this is not my words, this is what the Israeli media has printed and has shown live on TV. If you have a statesman speaking about this, how do you think this will translate into the actions of the soldiers, of the settlers? This rhetoric.
It hardlines them. What is the relationship between the Palestinian National Authority and the people inside Gaza? They overwhelmingly voted for the Hamas leadership 17 years ago.
This is, yes, Hamas got the majority of the parliament. But 1 year earlier, the president won the elections also against other contenders.
Okay.
And this result was and will still and will also be happening in the future. It was a punishment vote. It was punishment against the failure of the peace process to bear fruits. If we promised, people were punishing the PLO and the Palestinian Authority and the Palestinian National Movement, that you have promised us in 1994 that the occupation is going to be over, just bear with us until 1999 and you will live to see a sunnier day. This never happened, and in 2007, after another round of intifada in which people were massacred in the streets and in holy sites and whatever, and with us, of course, we are an unarmed nation, okay, we're unable to stand in the face of this military might.
Right.
People were punishing us. If you, the one who came to sell me pacifism and coexistence and opening a new chapter with our occupiers, for over 12, 13 years, we have seen nothing but more destruction, more death, more loss of property and confiscation of land. Then I might go with the other route that these guys are promising, the hardline route, because we have tried you for 12 years.
So are you saying that there's a threat as well for the outcome of this current situation actually weakening the Palestinian National Authority's hold in Gaza? Because the same frustration...
everywhere. The actions of Israel has been radicalizing the Palestinian society day in and day out. It's easier for them to deal with radical movements than to deal with people who are promoting peace and an end, peaceful means as an end for the occupation. Because what argument can they tell the world at that time? We have been boycotted, we have been sanctioned as a Palestinian Authority. Sorry, I heard your previous speaker, the ambassador of Israel, yesterday saying that we give them electricity and we give them water.
And opportunities to work.
I'm sorry. That water and electricity he's referring to, the Palestinian Authority has to pay for it. Israel sends the bill. So my occupier sends me the bill of what I'm consuming in water and electricity.
In my land.
In my land, to pay for it. And if I don't, they don't. Even the petrol that they are referring, nothing that is provided for free.
Your Excellency, I have to ask you this question. Has there ever been any government in Israel that the Palestinians have considered to be fair?
This is a very good question. We have been close to achieving a breakthrough in the deadlock through, of course, Prime Minister Olmert. We were very close and we had very close consultations, and my President and Prime Minister Olmert were having a series of meetings in each other's offices and houses But suddenly, out of the blue, the Prime Minister of Israel was removed from power. Prime Minister Rabin, the signatory of the was assassinated by the Israeli right wings.
In 1995, you see, this is it. It was at a peace rally.
Exactly.
Now, if you read the chronology of events and the history behind his assassination, there are those who argue, opinions differ on this, that it was for religious reasons. That the young man, a gentleman called Amir, 25-year-old at that particular time, felt he was actually following a religious order.
Yes.
He had this belief that someone who espoused the views that Rabin espoused was someone whom certain laws, what they call halakhic laws, allowed him to remove such a person.
Yes.
And during his trial, he even stated the same. Now, see where I'm going with this? He was clearly right-wing.
Yes.
The government in Israel right now is clearly right-wing.
Exactly.
If we look at Hamas, you could also argue they are right-wing.
Exactly that.
So now, you have two forces that are both extremists, to put it mildly. So what do we expect?
Exactly that. You put these ingredients together, this is the result that you were going to get.
Yeah.
No other result. When you had people in power in Israel, wiser, and were more interested in reaching a compromise and a solution, things were managed differently, and we did not have to clash or go into such tragic confrontations by any component in the Palestinian society. But when you have a right wing, as you rightfully said, government that sees no Palestinian on the land, we have the Minister of Finance saying that there is nothing called Palestinians, we are the Palestinians. Imagine in 2023, someone is saying that when you have two of the most prominent human rights organizations, Amnesty International and International Human Rights Watch, both issuing reports that what's happening in Palestine is apartheid by Israel. Apartheid in 2023.
But Your Excellency, do you know just how similar this is to the South African situation? Because Hamas represent what the ANC sometimes denied, sometimes accepted, called the spear of the nation. Because there was a wing in ANC who had decided these peace talks aren't getting us anywhere. A little armed conflict will get us somewhere. And they call themselves, I don't want to pronounce the name as it was because I will mispronounce it, the spear of the nation. Again, a situation where you are terrorized, you are confined, you are denied any freedoms within your own country, then arises an extremist group who believe, you know something, these talks aren't getting us anywhere. The young man who assassinated Rabin believed that the lands that the Palestinians occupied, him and people like him who had this belief, was the rightful place that Jews should have been living in. Now, when you have extremists who believe this, that this is their right, and yet they found people living there, and then you have another group. You see, I'm harping on these two extremists coming to meet. Where exactly do you hear the voices of people who are not extremists and who are saying,
where are the moderates?
Exactly, because we all live here anyway. And none of us is going to go anywhere. So how do we get to a point where we live together?
Those moderates are many. Not, unfortunately, they are the most powerful in the societies on both sides of the current situation, at least. But, for example, the number one recorder of all Israeli violations that are taking place in the occupied territory against the Palestinian people are Israeli NGOs that are recording these violations. So it's not Palestinians against Israelis. It's radicals against non-radicals. People who are seeking peace and a peaceful solution through the peaceful means, through international mechanisms and international law, and people who believe that they are above the law and should take matters in their own hands. Unfortunately for us, the current Israeli government belongs to that group, and that's what makes this a very explosive recipe. Hopefully that it does not escalate to a much more damage.
Well, as you referred to, severally, you talked about, we see the pictures, we see it all, we hear the words that are spoken. Another thing that we heard over the last couple of days was, commentary from the world in terms of what had happened. What's your reaction to some of the things that we heard? From the African Union, we heard, a specific angle to this where the African Union said, look, some of the things that you speak of must be called out. Must be called out, and that was looking at the state of Israel specifically. We also then have seen support. Which you say if that support comes from the United States, okay, that's not too surprising because that's always been. But then there have been many calls for different things. The president of Kenya made a statement about the support that who they stand, or who the president and the country stands with. How does that resonate with you as you hear some of these?
For me, I read very carefully His Excellency the President's statement, and you cannot stop at the first two lines of this statement and consider this is only what he's saying. Kenya is a very responsible international actor, and they know very well what are the obligations of Kenya under international law. And for a president who has been calling very loudly for a law-based international order, I think His Excellency the President knows exactly where the problem is. Now we have seen a trend of international, let's say, friends of Israel in the West that have made very quick and very advanced statement beyond the limitations of international law in this. When we understand the reason, in the US it's part and parcel of their internal politics and their election campaigns, and who gets elected is the more whoever proves to be more close to Israel and serves Israel best. Not solely on internal merits or internal politics or internal economical policies merits, but Israel plays a very important role in that regard. This is the American thing to deal with, and Europe has the historical guilt. They're still trying to make up for an historical guilt that, I'm sorry, we Palestinians had nothing to do with it. We were the people who received the first waves of immigrants into our homes and into our villages and towns.
You welcomed them.
We had no issues. It's when the numbers became overwhelming, and then we started hearing Britain saying that I'll make a homeland for the Jews in Palestine, then we started worrying. But before that, nobody even complained about that.
So what do you say to them, Ambassador? In fact, let me read the statement. This is a joint statement by the President Macron of France, Chancellor Scholz of Germany, Prime Minister Meloni of Italy, Prime Minister Sunak of the UK, President Biden of the US, expressing their steadfast and united support to the State of Israel and their unequivocal condemnation of Hamas and its appalling acts of terrorism. They continue to say we make clear that the terrorist actions of Hamas have no justification, no legitimacy, and must be universally condemned. I'm going to skip some lines and go to part where they say, our countries will support Israel in its efforts to defend itself and its people against such atrocities. We further emphasize that this is not a moment for any party hostile to Israel to exploit these attacks to seek advantage. All of us recognize the legitimate aspirations of the Palestinian people and support equal measures of justice and freedom for Israelis and Palestinians alike. But make no mistake, Hamas does not represent those aspirations, and it offers nothing for the Palestinian people other than more terror and bloodshed.
Shrinking the entire conflict with all its complexities and over 100 years old in a 48-hour snapshot. This is exactly what this is. Unwavering support for Israel. Fine. In what? In committing war crimes? But this is basically what this is. I don't have a problem. As a Palestinian, you can support Israel as much as you want. It has nothing got to do with me, as long as it has nothing got to do with me. But are you supporting Israel? Unwavering support, limitless support to protect it in the international arenas. And when they commit genocide and war crimes that the ICC is looking into, you're still supporting Israel? But other countries are held to what they call to the letter of the law on every aspect that they do in violation to international law, but not Israel. This impunity should stop for the sake of everybody, not only for the sake of Palestinians. Put the Palestinians aside in this equation. If we weaken international law and its applicability, and we put some states above the law, this is a recipe for devastation.
Around the world.
Around the world. And we have seen this happening other places. Whatever. Why are some countries entitled to use force and being supported with military means to defend themselves, but not the Palestinians? We have to sit and wait until we see what Israel is willing to give to us. I heard your previous speaker saying, we tried to give them, we offered them 95%, and they did not take it.
Yeah.
You're offering me of what is mine legally, 95%, and I should cheer for it? Come on, please respect our intelligence and the audience's intelligence and whatever. You're not giving me what is yours. You're giving me what the law, the court, the International Court of Justice has said Israel has no right in any inch outside the 1967 borders. The European Council has said we will never recognize Israel or its settlements outside the 1967 borders. Security Council resolutions have said the same thing to the letter, and I have copies here from dependable
But here you are, Ambassador, with all those, you're quoting the UN Security Council, you're quoting the European Union. The powerful states in those countries are these ones that are issuing a joint statement where they're offering unequivocal support to Israel. And you're questioning to what extent is this support. It sounds to me like you're at a corner.
We are at a corner, and this is why we're in a deadlock.
So what's your way out?
Our way out, without these countries changing their course into respecting international law and stopping these double standards in which they have been running affairs in the world, we will continue to see conflicts. I'm sorry, the conflicts are not only in Palestine. Every other day we're seeing a new problem somewhere else in the world.
Do I hear you to be saying, Your Excellency, that if we were to go by the statement that my colleague Eric has just read, that these very countries are abrogating the very things the Security Council and the UN have actually pronounced?
Exactly that, because the Security Council has asked countries like France, US, even Kenya, for certain measures. It's your obligation as a country, as a member of the society. It's run just like the same way that law is carried out inside a society. You are obligated by law to inform the police that the crime has been committed and who the criminal is, and to take action against it. If you give that criminal shelter or assistance or whatever, you are part of the crime.
Do you think that the state of Palestine, from what you've talked to us about this morning, has there been enough opportunity to give truth to the side of Palestine?
No, the mainstream Western media has made it very part of their mission, really, to block the Palestinian narrative. Facebook has been blocking Palestinian posts throughout the past 3 years. Western media always tackle the thing from Israel's right. Yeah, but Israel is a violator too. Israel definitely has a right to be living in secure and safety and prosperity, but within its confined borders. I'm going to ask you for a favor, to ask any Israeli official, be it the Israeli ambassador or anybody that you come across during your line of duty, to ask him, what are the borders of Israel? Let him define to you, what are the borders of Israel? They are not in the constitution of Israel. Israel doesn't have a constitution. It has a basic law and has no definition of the borders. The only country in the world that is allowed to exist without defined borders.
Ambassador, we thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for coming and shedding light on what's happening in that region from this perspective of the Palestinians. Asante sana. Ambassador Hazim Shabat is the ambassador of the Palestinian government to Kenya, the state of Palestine in Kenya. Asante sana for joining us. Keeping here for more conversations. In the next hour, we commemorate the World Day Against the Death Penalty. 9 a.m. Good morning.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newsworm Dennis Aseto. The attack on Israel by the Hamas group happened due to continued mistreatment and attacks by the Israeli military. Palestinian ambassador to Kenya, Hazim Shabat, says that the Palestinians have long been mistreated by the Israeli government. Homes bombarded and innocent killed, a fact that has radicalized the Palestinians in Gaza.
It's basically 56 years of continuous occupation, day in and day out. We have been warning for now 2 consecutive years. My president in the General Assembly asked explicitly, we call for international protection to stand between us and the Israelis, because the amount of Israeli atrocities that are taking place on daily basis in all cities, not only in Gaza, that the Israeli settlers protected by the armies exist, our people are suffering. Our people are prohibited from reaching hospitals, to schools. This is brewing. The tragic events that have happened. I can only blame Israel for it. I don't care who pulled the trigger, but who has been feeding for that incident to happen, or that event to happen, or these atrocities to happen.
He says that actions by Israeli military for over 17 years have pushed the Hamas to the wall. He adds that military power and suppression cannot be a recipe for good relations, but respect for international law.
The actions of the Israeli government over 56 years has been continuously radicalizing the Palestinian society. If you are a person who's humiliated on your way in and out of work, I don't think that you will develop to be a pacifist. If your house is being bombarded and every other year you have to bury people of your family or your children or whatever under the rubbles, you will not be a pacifist. If you are in the case of Gaza has been under full military closure for 17 years. Full military closure. That there is no bolt, there is no screw, there is no bar of chocolate, there is no biscuit that enters the Gaza Strip that is not allowed in through the checkpoints that Israel has approved, or the entry points that Israel has approved into the Gaza Strip.
Now, Azimio leader Raila Odinga has insisted that Mombasa County leadership must be involved in the government's plan to privatize Mombasa Port. Odinga has also said that the privatization of port activities without involving the residents of the county is a violation of the law.
Ukiongea juu ya mambo ya concessioning ya bandari ya Mombasa, county government ya Mombasa mpaka iyo mshikadau pale. Na ikiwa kimiko board of directors, Mombasa County must have representation.
A similar statement has been made by Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Sharif Nasir, who says that the county's leadership should be involved as they are the main stakeholders of the port.
Na tukizungumza hatuzungumzi ya kwa tunapinga maendeleo. Hatupingi mambo ya upanuaji wa bandari. Lakini tunapinga kutoweza kuwekwa katika hesabu, kwa sababu tusipowekwa katika hesabu sasa, baada ya kalamu ishaweza kukauka, wino kushaweza kukauka katika ile karatasi, sahauni watu wa Mombasa.
Chief Justice Martha Koome presided over the swearing-in of 69 newly recruited resident magistrates who will also serve as small claims court adjudicators. The Chief Justice described magistrates courts and small claims courts as people courts and the face of the justice system. The CJ cited caseload statistics show that 85% of cases that come to the judiciary are heard and determined at subordinate courts. She highlighted that it is at the magistrates court and the small claims court where the highest numbers of unprecedented litigants are found, meaning that the vast majority of people's experience of the law and the justice system is drawn from their contact or interaction with the magistrates court, small claims court. The nominated Member of Parliament Sabina Chege has lost her position as the Deputy Minority Whip in the National Assembly. A case filed by Chege in a Kiambu court to challenge Azimio La Umoja's decision to remove her from the position was thrown out. Consequently, Embakasi West MP Mark Mwenje is set to be the new Deputy Minority Whip in the 13th Parliament. Jubilee Party has been in a protracted legal battle over leadership, with the Chege-led faction fighting the Uhuru-led wing to control the party and millions in the kitty. This is Newswire. Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, so traffic is not a problem today, and even at 9 o'clock, we're looking at clean, easy streets, and probably going to be that way for the rest of today. So nothing jumping out at you. Just in case it does, would you talk to us? Please do. Spice FM KE on X. We want to keep things moving this morning. Let's talk, but I think we'll be fine traffic-wise. We'll just check around half an hour from now and see what happens. Okay? All right. Spice FM KE on X.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Okoh, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latiff, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
7 minutes after 9. How are you doing? Welcome to the final hour of Kenya's biggest conversation on this Utamaduni Day. Karibu sana. If you're just joining us, we thank you and we welcome you. So, CT, have just been telling you about these new shows. Not movie, buana. It's the new shows, buana. Okay. Bro, everything is movie.
So long as Ndu has what she has told you. Cinema.
Iko kwa screen.
Movie. If it's continuous every day, continuous movie.
As long as it's not news, it's movie.
Movie. Yes. Even documentary. Movie. Yes.
Okay. New movies that have been launched on Maisha Magic Plus coming out this month. One of them premiered last night, and this one is called Kasiri. This is the one about a father who dies, and then everybody else finds out, he had another family. It premiered yesterday, and it will be showing yesterday was Monday, every Monday to Wednesday on Maisha Magic Plus. The other one premieres on the 23rd of October. This is called Zari, and it will be showing on Maisha Magic Plus Monday to Friday at 8:30 p.m. Maisha Magic Plus on DSTV channel 163 and GoTV channel 3. Tell a friend to watch these ones. CT is already aware of these new movies, Zari and Kasiri. Just dial 423# or download my DSTV or my GoTV app and get or stay connected. Terms and conditions always apply. Before I welcome our next guest into the conversation, there is this very interesting editorial cartoon by Gado on the Standard today. I will describe it. So what you see here is an animal. This animal looks to be like a tiger. or a leopard or a cheetah, any of those things, it's just one of those animals.
Feline.
Tiger-like.
Why don't you just throw in...
And it's wearing a Dio's hat. A tiger wearing a Dio's hat, and it has a bib, and the bib is written Rigiji. Okay? The tiger wearing a Dio's hat, wearing a bib written Rigiji, is at the NSC, the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and he's speaking to the boss of the Nairobi Securities Exchange, and says, I want Kenya Kwanza government listed.
We here on the show.
Yeah. Member.
Yes. So there's an IPO coming up.
Kenya government.
Kenya Kwanza government listed by this tiger wearing a Dio's hat. Okay. Today is a big day around the world. We talk about the death penalty, and there's been a campaign, a global push against the death penalty globally. And on this particular day, it's the 21st World Day Against the Death Penalty. We are joined by two guests in the studio. One of them is the Minority Leader in the National Assembly, the Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, and the other one is Julie Wayua Madheka, the Program Manager at ICJ Kenya. Good morning, Mheshimiwa. Good morning, Julie.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Okay, both of you are Mheshimiwa then.
I was going to ask you, sure.
Julie amepata kura ngapi?
I have gotten votes at some point in my life.
Okay. Sawa. So, Waheshimiwa, good morning and welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. Happy Utamaduni Day as you join us. Yeah, it's also Utamaduni Day. And happy World Day Against the Death Penalty. It's a big one. It's a big one. Mheshimiwa, it's been a while. We've been wanting to have you here for a while. It's pleasure to have you.
The time has come.
The hot seat of the Situation Room welcomes you. Julie has been here before, but not seated. She's been here standing. Karibu tena, Julie.
Thank you very much.
To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb. Today's proverb is from
the United Republic of Tanzania. A country within the Great Lakes region, whose capital is Dodoma. No less. Okay? Third largest country on the continent. The proverb is a simple, easy to understand proverb for a slow, pleasant day like today. Every bird flies with its own wings.
Every bird flies with its own wings.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go here with rank. Minority Leader, what is your interpretation of this?
Well, every bird obviously has to fly with its own wings. Yeah, it would perhaps mean that one has to use what they own to make ends meet for themselves. Yes,
it's a good one, Julie.
I would say you chart your own destiny. Depending on the hard work and the things that you do, you'll be able to soar. So you'll chart your own destiny. So bidii yako.
City?
Yes, we usually award marks for the effort, and it's usually from a scale of 1 to 100. Well, you know, whatever I feel like. But today, it'll be out of 20.
Okay. It's Utamaduni Day.
Yes, exactly. So, Mheshimiwa, it's out of 20, you've got 21.
What?
And you also have 21.
Thank you.
Why not?
We have overachieved.
Well, yes, because when we ask for your opinion and you give it,
yes,
you've clearly understood the question and you've responded appropriately.
What more could you ask for?
Yes.
What more could you ask?
Really.
Julie, what is ICJ Kenya? Let's start with that.
Thank you. ICJ Kenya is a member organization that is basically an NGO, first of all. We have membership from the bar, the bench, advocates, people with a legal training. We are founded on the principles that we all want to achieve human rights, democracy, rule of law within Kenya, but we also work within Africa. So that is what ICJ is. We were founded in 1959, so we're one of the oldest human rights organizations in Kenya.
On this day, when the world is marking the World Day Against the Death Penalty, why is the world marking a day against the death penalty? And who established this? Who said today is the day?
Okay. So ICJ has been a member of the World Coalition Against the Death Penalty since inception, really. And every year we realize that all countries celebrate their own milestones around human rights, but why not come together on a question of the death penalty? So this was constituted 20 years ago, actually. 20 years ago, because you're on the 21st day. And ICJ and the Kenya Human Rights Commission in Kenya are a member of the World Coalition. So that is how it came to be.
So when you say you are against the death penalty, what do you mean?
We believe that the death penalty is a violation of human rights because of, first of all, how it is meted out, the manner in which people are executed. It is wrong. It is cruel, inhumane, and degrading treatment because in some countries it's done through gas, other countries lethal injection. Our country, if it was to be done, it would be done by hanging until death, which is actually very cruel if you think about the process itself. So it's cruel, inhumane treatment. Not only does it do that in terms of the execution, but let's look at it from the point of determination that you are guilty and you're sentenced to death. If you did not get the right fair trial processes accorded to you, you will feel that the whole process has been unjust. So either you are tortured for a confession, you did not get adequate legal representation, you are not conversant with the language of the court, because our courts speak in mostly English or Swahili. So if you're not really conversant with the processes, everything becomes unjust. So at point of sentence. Then we go into the point of you are now incarcerated. Depending on the time frame that you take, if you're 20 years on death row, it is such a different scenario for you. You're isolated, you don't get access to a lot of family members because maybe they abandoned you. Some family members are not very okay with a family member being on death row, so you get abandoned, you get isolated by your own family. But within the prison system, you're isolated from other inmates because death row inmates don't interact with others for security reasons, but also that is how it has been since colonialism.
For whose security?
Inmate security.
Of the other inmates?
The other inmates.
The other inmates.
Okay.
Death row inmates are considered
very dangerous.
Very dangerous, yet some of them are actually pretty harmless.
Dangerous.
No, we have interacted. Some of them are really good.
Okay.
So yeah, that's the idea. So there are very many levels of the torture element that we have really looked at ICJ, and we do believe it's actually torture. And of course, the last thing, the deprivation of life. I mean, life is sacred. And by virtue of you implementing the death penalty, it means you deprive of life.
All right.
Yeah.
Maybe this is something also for you, Mheshimiwa, that you can come into. Under what circumstances, because the death penalty is a sentence, right? Under what circumstances is the death penalty then given as a sentence for an individual? What crime must you have committed in order for that to be?
In our statutes, especially the penal code, death sentence is for what they call capital offenses. And these are basically murder, treason, robbery with violence, and in fact, attempted robbery with violence. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So let's take the first one, murder.
Murder.
You killed somebody, an individual, took the life of somebody else. Under what circumstances, we do not know. Let's remove this element of maybe they went through trial and it was not them. These individuals with evidence meeting the threshold for conviction have been convicted and sentenced to death. Let's take murder, for example. And so when initially those who came up with this in the first place, I believe the dictum was a life for a life. You take one, yours then is taken from you. How would we argue outside of that before we go to these other ones?
But you see, the world has progressed. The world has really progressed. From the time you would say an eye for an eye. Yes, because that was the argument. Therefore, if one was convicted of rape, then he should be raped. It doesn't follow, really. Yes. If you say that one has murdered, and therefore you should be killed, okay?
You've also murdered.
You've also murdered.
Okay.
So the state is also committing murder, okay? So it doesn't help. It doesn't really help at all. And for Kenya, coming back home, we are alive to the fact that our own constitution, at Article 26, guarantees life. Okay.
So what then should we do with murderers? People
we are proposing. If you read my bill, amendment bills, we are proposing that we sentence them to life imprisonment.
Okay.
Okay? Which therefore gives them an opportunity to be rehabilitated. Okay? And if they reform sufficiently, they can even be pardoned under special circumstances. So really, so don't kill someone, which is actually
just because they kill.
Yeah, which is basically killing is a finality. The guy will never come back to life.
But usually, if they are convicted and there's evidence, we're looking at the killing and not looking at perhaps, or we are looking, but we're not stating the social ramifications of that particular act. Somebody who has chosen a career in robbing people with violence, because you choose. Somebody who has chosen that in the process of robbing, they do not mind taking other people's lives.
Or raping people.
Or pillaging, just the things that they do. Are you then not saying that this is a person who has chosen a life of depriving other people of their rights? And so that if they are that way inclined, should they then not be removed
from SET?
From normal, yes, because they are an anathema to the people who they are supposed to exist among.
But come to think of it, even with the death penalty remaining in our statutes, when was last time you had anybody in Kenya who was executed?
In fact, this is interesting that you asked this, Moshima, because last week there was a guest here from the prison service. He was at our sister station, and I had a conversation with him.
Yes.
And in the prison where he serves, there are 400 inmates on death row. 400.
That's the point.
On death row, right? Yes. And we were to ask the question, if they are on death row waiting for the gallows
to be hanged,
why has this not happened in Kenya?
Because the state seems to also have some fears executing people.
And what are these fears?
The last
Parliament should be telling the state to do what you're supposed to do. They are costing us.
The last execution
to keep them alive.
The last execution was done, I think, in 1987. That of Ochuka and Uteo. Okay.
Was that even witnessed? I mean,
it was reported. It was reported.
Yeah. For all we know, they are living somewhere.
But let me tell you, the waiting itself is even more torturous.
Yeah, I agree.
Than the actual execution.
I agree with you completely.
Yes, we are told in the prisons, those who are on death row, they are called condemned. Yes, they are being taunted every day by our prison warders that the day has come. And the day never comes. That day never comes. The day for the hangman to come and...
Moshima, can we take this discussion a little back?
Yes.
And let's not touch with the perpetrator. Let us, because this is a debate in places where the death sentences exist in some states and not in others. The ecosystem that breeds such individuals in numbers that we may consider alarming. There are people who, by virtue of their mental state and inclination, are inclined in a certain direction. They are given to doing things that other people don't do. And some of them don't have a problem doing those things that other people don't do. For them, it's normal. But then there are others whose circumstances initiate into the things that may end up in someone dying and then being accused. Now, we talk of rehabilitation. If you look at that ecosystem that breeds this person, then you look at the ecosystem within our prison system. That prison system does not... if it rehabilitates you into being far worse than what you are when you went in. So this rehabilitation process that we speak of, what really is it? How is it that people are released from prison, many of them not long after are back again? Because...
the same day.
Yes.
Well, Julie can help us understand.
I think there have been some successful rehabilitation programs. The prison project that was done in Kamiti Prison, whereby death row inmates or persons whose life sentences whose death sentences have been commuted to life, were actually given the opportunity to study. And some of them have gotten degrees in law from the University of London and have left the prison system after their sentences were commuted and have come and are now lawyers within the society.
So you have murderers who are lawyers.
We have persons who were previously on death row who have now been released, who are now lawyers. It is a bit difficult, of course, for them to practice, but they do have the opportunity to be members and contributors to the society. Sure. So some rehabilitation has
I take it that they studied criminal law.
They studied law. Potentially with an emphasis on criminal law because of what they had gone through.
Because their own personal experience.
And actually it really helps a lot because when...
But the conviction was not lifted.
The conviction was...
It's the sentence that was commuted.
The sentence was commuted, and some of them had really sustained their perception of innocence until the last day when their sentences were commuted. So you really never know whether the person was innocent or guilty. There are some who have left and reopened their cases just so that they can get an innocent verdict, because ideally once your sentence is commuted, unfortunately, you are still guilty at the point.
Sure. I understand the human rights aspect. And I think, it's not very difficult to explain, right? In terms of this person in an isolated space away from the crime they may or may not have committed. In a lot of cases, they would have, right? But why it is important to explain this properly is usually for the minds of the people who cannot reconcile with the fact that their child, their family member, their spouse, whomever was murdered by this person, that we're now trying to say, you know what, we need to recognize their rights. It's important to explain where this is coming from, because that memory, that experience with this other person remains emblazoned in the minds of the people that you're now trying to say, guess what? This man or woman then also has rights which we must consider. So even as we're talking about looking into the abolition of this death penalty, how are we going to explain it in a manner that the woman's son who was brutally murdered, or the man's wife who was brutally murdered, you are now thinking about the rights, and they will ask the questions, who thought about the rights of my husband? Who thought about the rights of my child? And it is brutally important to explain where that is coming from.
But again, isn't imprisonment itself punishment enough? Because for sure,
is it?
Yeah, if you are in prison for life, yes, it is serious punishment. That should actually address the concerns or the feelings of the victims' relatives.
Which it's two-pronged really, because on the one hand, if someone perpetrates such a crime, in the wake of such a crime, there are very many people who have to endure that loss.
Yes.
Okay. Now, are we saying that what you and the ICJ are saying is that the restitutive process that is being alluded to is one where one even makes peace with the people they have caused the pain, and that secondly, they themselves are brought to an understanding of what it is that they did, because you can't rehabilitate someone if they do not understand what they did, the ramifications of it, so that they now have an opportunity to change from what they were. Are you saying that these and other processes that guarantee that the restitutive process has taken place to the extent that the perpetrator has made attempts to make peace with the people who were bereaved and who were in pain?
Our criminal justice system doesn't actually allow for that. I don't know. But because I remember when I was discussing this thing with my colleagues in Parliament, some of my colleagues from Northeastern were actually saying we don't even want people to be taken to court. They should be allowed to talk to the victims' families and pay camels. It's something which is not within our legal framework. Okay? But it can be considered. The most important thing is that we want society to live in harmony. Okay? Even as you punish offenders, society must live in harmony. That's really the objective of law.
And not all losses of death arise from what we normally consider when there are robbery gone wrong, or somebody who is psychopathic or what have you. It could be an altercation. It could be anything that accidentally and incidentally ends up in death. But the end of it, you've killed. Okay?
But that may not be murder. Murder is defined clearly in
yes,
in
you're
law.
talking about manslaughter and things like that. You see, why am I bringing in manslaughter? It's because there's a loss of life.
Yes.
And so long as there's a loss of life, there is a restitutive process. Look, why do we have the Peace and Reconciliation Forum in this country? South Africa had it. Why? It's because amidst everything we discuss, lives were lost. And until there is a semblance of understanding that can bring about peace, and it can bring about someone coming to terms with those things, then, if you ask me, justice has not been served.
Okay, allow me to chime in here. We do normally get the victims' perspectives in these matters. The Victim Protection Act actually allows for a victim's voice to be heard within the criminal justice process. So we do get the perspective of the victim and the family, particularly, of the person. And in this entire debate of the death penalty, we are not negating the impact that it has on the victims' families. I think I want to come up front and say that. But what we are saying is even the victims sometimes, they say that for us, whether or not you kill the person who killed our person, it will not bring us back our person. So their perception of justice is not the execution of the person. It's for this person to appreciate what they did, how it impacted our society, to reform, rehabilitate, and become a champion against what they did.
Okay.
Because that is how they perceive justice. The other thing around victims is sometimes even the implementation of the death penalty contravenes their beliefs, both personal beliefs and religious beliefs. Because there are some people who are actually of the conviction that you cannot kill another person. So by implementing the death penalty, you are further violating their personal belief, because now they have violated their religious beliefs because of what they will subject that person to. So it's a mixed perspective from the victims, and I don't think all of them ascribe to the eye for an eye mentality. However, it's important that we do not also pardon people. I mean, if you have committed a murder, it is a very serious offense. And that is why we are looking at
rape. If you've
so
committed
there should be
robbery
some
with
punishment
violence.
of sort.
There should be a
Let's
good
take
punishment.
a break. It's 9:30. Kenya's biggest conversation this morning is commemorating World Day Against the Death Penalty. Opiyo Wandayi is a minority leader in the National Assembly. He has proposed a bill in Parliament which is seeking to abolish the death penalty in Kenya. Julie Madheka is a program manager at ICJ Kenya, which is also advocating for the abolition of the death penalty in Kenya. Are we going to get there or are we not? Let's get into that conversation shortly. Good morning.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
On your marks, get set.
Kenya's largest single-day athletics event is back again this year, and it is bigger. Get ready for the 20th edition of the Standard Chartered Nairobi Marathon. Join us at the Uhuru Gardens on Sunday, 29th October, as we celebrate 20 years running. Register today for 2,000 shillings only at www.nairobimarathon.com. All proceeds go towards our Future Makers program, which helps young people, especially girls and people living with disability, to learn, earn, and grow.
Wadau mko ready kuona magic? Nasema wadau mko ready kuona magic? Haya basi, msi blink juu sasa tumefungulia Magic na Maisha Magic Plus. Watch all the best local entertainment kama Njoro wa Uba, Salem na the all new shows Kasiri and Zari. Tumefungulia Magic. Maisha Magic Plus is now on DSTV Access channel 163 and GoTV Plus channel 3. Karibu boma ya local.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94 point.
Continues. Happy Utamaduni Day. We're live on Spice FM, on KTN News, on YouTube and on Facebook. This morning, as we also commemorate World Day Against the Death Penalty, we are hosting Opiyo Wandayi, the minority leader in the National Assembly, who sponsored a bill that is seeking to abolish the death penalty in Kenya, and ICJ Kenya's Julie Madheka, which is also an institution that is pushing for the abolition of the death penalty in Kenya. And that's the conversation we've been having. The why, the what. Instead of the death penalty, what should we have? And Mheshimiwa, you're saying, so what you're proposing is let's actually have life imprisonment instead of the death penalty.
Yes, correct.
Do you think that would be justice enough? Because there are very many people who, like Julie, just before the break, you were saying, one of the things that you do is you engage with the victims, and even the court process allows for the victims to actually come out and speak. And in many cases, the victims do not necessarily support the death penalty. They don't even support some of these punishments that are being meted out by the court. All they want is for this person whom they hold accountable for the crime to acknowledge that this is what we did. So then should we then say that as long as a person has come and said, poleni,
yeah, but again,
go home.
As Julie was saying, nothing will ever return back the person who has died. Yes,
true.
And therefore, the punishment is not really meant to bring back the person to life. In the same way, if a guy was charged with robbery with violence, in which somebody suffered maybe serious injuries, Okay, he was maimed.
Yep.
Okay, even if you kill him, the guy would never regain his original health. So really, it's the question of basically meting out punishment, which is commensurate with the offense. Okay, with the offense, and to act as a deterrence to the rest of society. But more critically, is to reform the offender so that when he comes out, he's able to be useful to society. That's basically the intention.
But this is a life imprisonment. Life imprisonment does not have life and come out.
You will not come out.
No, we are actually working on that again. The life imprisonment is also being
with the possibility of some parole at some point.
Yes.
Why?
So
this is a cost. Why somebody who has been found guilty by a court of law of having committed this very atrocious crime being committed at the cost of everybody else to go through this prison system where we are rehabilitating them and hoping that in 40 years' time they will be rehabilitated.
In their old age.
Why are you subjecting the entire country to that?
In fact, some studies have shown, and Julie can also say this, that even those who have been found guilty of these offenses, capital offenses, and are on death row, majority of them are the poor. Okay? You must also understand. And therefore, what makes it possible that it's only the poor who end up being in the death row and not the rich? There could be something, okay, in the criminal justice system, okay? And therefore, you want to give everybody a chance. Everybody a chance. And
why is it that only those who are poor end up? Is it that they end up with a conviction or they end up with a prosecution?
Well, the studies have shown. I'm sure you can explain better. Yes.
I think the studies have shown that a lot of persons who end up in the criminal justice system generally are poor and vulnerable, be it for serious offenses, but also for petty offenses. But since today's on the serious offenses, I'll go in that general direction. So on the serious offenses, the questions begin from the fact that at point of arrest, many do not understand the crime that they committed. One would imagine that potentially depriving someone of their property in a forceful nature in the company of another person would just be threatening. But it's actually robbery with violence, because that is one of the elements, to be in the presence of two. Not necessarily even wielding a weapon, but in the presence of two. So now you are arrested at that point. You actually agree, because indeed what the police say is what you'll agree to. You go through the criminal justice process. The prosecution prepares their prosecution, a well-tight case. You do not have the resources to get an advocate. Remember that the National Legal Aid Service, which is the body mandated to provide you with legal aid or a legal defense, doesn't have the capacity for the whole country. So they mostly prioritize murder cases and a few other very serious robbery with violence cases and sexual offences cases. So you do not have an advocate at that point. You go through the process without having the opportunity to adequately defend yourself, and you then get charged with robbery with violence and the death penalty. So I think what we are saying is, and I really want to rehash this, we are not really negating the voice of the victim here. We are not saying that what they did was wrong. What they did was right. We are saying that every person deserves an opportunity to be heard. Every person deserves fair representation before criminal justice systems. We do not have a perfect system within our criminal justice. And also, when we go into the lives of persons who are incarcerated in prison, we need to have a graduated approach. Because one thing about the death penalty is we actually believe that the people who ought to suffer the death penalty are of the serious of the most serious. And sometimes you find that the people who are there are not really the most serious offenders who deserve the death penalty. But on the merits of it all, from a human rights point of view, no one should deserve the death penalty because of its cruel, inhumane nature. But looking at the point where we are at as Kenya, Kenya has yet to really sign on to a few other protocols that would dictate whether we abolish the death penalty. The second optional protocol, which actually talks about abolition of the death penalty to the ICCPR. We haven't done that. And when we look at the fact that people every single day get sentenced to death, we always leave that as an opportunity for manipulation. Should one day someone wakes up and decides to actually hang everyone, there are people who have gone through their appeal process and their guilty verdicts have been vacated. So we cannot disregard the fact that there are certain innocent people who are actually going on with their lives within the criminal justice system.
Why not advocate for the fixing of the system? The fixing of the system that has led this person to get into the system and they did not get adequate legal representation. They did not get to understand what their charges are. They did not even get to understand the offense that they've committed. Why not fix that side of the system? But that before you come to this end.
And if I can add something onto that, there have been calls for the institution of the Office of a Public Defender in Kenya today to sort out some of these issues that you talk about. Inadequate representation, when we talk about inability to post bail and bond, when we talk about things like that. Of course, we know that those things are not postable when we're talking about capital offences. However, if you had the Office of a Public Defender who was able to explain some of these things or essentially defend people, then we would be sorting out the problem. So are we not looking at a system issue as opposed to now dealing with the back end?
And which is easier to sort out? This systems issue or the back end? Because that back end is huge.
I mean,
you want to sort out the socioeconomic circumstances that people live in that makes them vulnerable to certain influences, many of which are nefarious. That is really difficult to sort out. But this other one is not that difficult.
I agree, but there are also certain things that are not system issues. When you look at the question of the mandatory death penalty and the nature of the mandatory nature of it all. So the Francis Moruatetu case actually declared mandatory death penalty unconstitutional. The reason for that is because it violated the right to fair trial, which is by virtue of you being charged with murder, the end game...
There can only be one outcome.
There's only one outcome, irrespective of your mitigation. And people had really good mitigation. I know there's a case, let me not cite it. I know there's a case where a person had been beaten brutally by her partner for over 10 years. And one day, she retaliated, but unfortunately the retaliation was very... swift
was fatal.
And final.
It was a conclusive retaliation, and the person died. She was charged with murder. The mitigation was not considered, and she actually went on death row. But upon appeal, they actually vacated that, and she was released because had they considered the mitigation, this is someone who wouldn't have been in jail. And that is the case for a lot of women. A lot of women actually end up in the system because of intimate partner violence. A lot of people actually end up in the system because of mental issues. And I think as Kenya, we are now waking up to the question around mental illnesses that have actually plagued everyone, including persons in the criminal justice system. So I think there's a lot to unpack in terms of people and their illnesses that have led to them committing certain crimes. But I think the day for us is very symbolic because it allows us to reflect on people who never get the opportunity to be heard.
Okay. But and when all is
you're not hold on, Moshimo. She has not answered the question. Why not fix those issues? If an issue is legally, a judicial officer is only given one option, mandatory death sentence. Remove that. Remove the mandate for death sentence. And give the judicial officer the discretion to know how to sentence this person.
Somebody cannot argue their case in court because they don't have representation. Institute a public defender.
It's like this issue we've been having with adolescents and sex. I mean, it's the law. 2 young people who are under the mandatory age of adulthood have sex. One is 17.
One is 18.
One is 18. Suddenly, one has defaulted the other, and yet when you look at the case, it was consent. But then the law tells you they don't have the wherewithal to give consent because they're minors. Now,
so
surely,
fix the law.
Okay, so I won't talk about Romeo and Juliet cases because I believe there's a task force working on that. But it has been a real issue in the criminal justice system because of the unfortunate incarceration of the boy child. But now moving into the question of mandatory minimums, we have now abolished the mandatory death penalty within the question of murder. But it doesn't apply to the question of robbery with violence, doesn't apply to the question of the others, aiding and abetting, taking an oath to commit a capital offense. The reason being the Supreme Court in 2021 was very clear that this judgment is very strict on the question of murder. Should you want to have the mandatory minimums lifted on the others, then institute a similar case all the way up. And if you look at the question of the Moruatetu case, it took a very long time before we got that judgment. And at the end of the day, the onus to repeal the laws rests with Parliament. So that is why we are looking to Parliament to repeal the laws, because ideally, no matter how you go about it, the judiciary will always have its hands tied because they can only declare it unconstitutional and refer it back to the National House. But for us, we are thinking, if you have a parole system, because actually even the parole system was recommended in the task force that was created after the Moru Atetu 1 judgment in 2017. The Attorney General led a task force, and one of the recommendations was to institute a parole board whereby different actors would sit together, look at a particular convict, look at how they have performed within the prison system, look at how they have reformed, get the victims' impact statements from the families, and then with that information assess whether this person could be released. That was something that should have been created. It has been in the books for quite a while. It's not a new thing, but it hasn't worked. So those are the things that are being championed, and I know with the Prison Act that is about to be repealed and the repeal is coming to the House, that is one of the things that they have put in. But moving back, systems have tried to be changed. We have pushed for the National Legal Aid Service to get its legal aid fund. We have also pushed for that in Parliament. If they got well-resourced, hopefully they can actually do the job of a public defender because they have that mandate. So I don't think we need a new office. We need to strengthen the National Legal Aid Service because that's one of their core mandates. If you look at the question of mandatory minimums, it's a statute issue. You'd have to repeal the various laws that bind the hands of the judicial officers. If you also look at the question of knowledge, in terms of people understanding what are laws, what actually offenses carry the death penalty or not. That is a question of awareness creation. We rarely do awareness creation on the question of crimes because we assume that you shouldn't do crimes, but people just need to take the initiative to understand what could potentially happen should you commit a particular crime.
It sounds like the solution is actually possible, and the solution lies squarely at your doorstep, Mheshimiwa.
Yes,
Parliament.
It's true. Now, and you see now, putting aside the issues of morality, as it is, the death penalty, mandatory death penalty is unconstitutional. The court has declared, the Supreme Court has declared so. And it's a duty of the legislature, where I sit, to align our statutes with the Constitution. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. That even if we sat here and waited forever, the death penalty is unconstitutional. And it's important also that we don't leave that kind of confusion or lacuna in the law. Julie talked about Kenya not ratifying the International Convention on Civil and Political Rights. Actually, Kenya had signed it.
Yeah, the second adoption of protocol is why we have refused to sign.
Yes. And it shows you the intention of the country. The country is moving towards the abolition of this death penalty alongside other groups of nations in the world. Okay, so I think it's our duty to do what is right as a parliament, and we have to do it. Yeah, one way or the other.
Why is Parliament not allocating adequate resources to support people who require legal aid? We have a law in place. We have a body in place. Parliament is just not funding it.
Well, you see, Parliament doesn't own money. You see,
Parliament allocates money.
No. Parliament is the one who says where you spend the money.
You are a budget-making parliament.
I was coming to that. Parliament makes budget based on the available resources.
Yeah.
Yes.
Precisely.
Yes.
But
you prioritize.
It's a question of juggling.
Yes.
Where do you put money?
Why haven't you juggled it in that direction?
You see, it's a difficult question because
I'm not letting you go on this one, Mheshimiwa.
If resources are available,
resources are always available.
No, they're never available.
Yes, they are. The beauty of this discipline we call economics is because of the concept of scarcity.
Yes.
Resources are never enough. So because of it, you need to understand how you allocate them and prioritize them. We have a situation here that leads to this unconstitutional issue of the death row and killing people because they have killed. And yet, there's a solution within the grasp of Parliament. Simply allocate funds so that this injustice that occurs because someone is poor, can't get proper defense, can't, at least some sort of mitigation is in place. They are able to actually receive that justice which this very same constitution guarantees.
It's true. It's a question of prioritizing. Yes.
Okay.
Let me say so. Yeah, because there are so many competing needs for the available resources. Yes.
If we want to stay within the system, and I think we alluded to that, Julie, because there are a number of questions here. Somebody says something like, you know what? You don't even need the death penalty because the states of the prisons and what people have to go through while sitting on that death row, or even not on death row as a condemned offender in remand, is worse than death.
True.
Okay?
Yeah, it's true.
So when we look at the restitutive and the rehabilitative system, does it really work? If we are saying that jail is not, or prison is not a punishment. It's not a punishment. We're saying that it is a restitutive and rehabilitative process. Is that really the case? So then, can funds be budgeted for, legislated for, to this process where you say, truly, truly, to the satisfaction and belief of those who are then looking at this thing, will they then be able to rest assured that it truly is a rehabilitative process, to be able to say, actually, you know what, understanding that what you did, number one, was wrong, how have you then come out, if you do come out, you know, a quote-unquote better human being? But for all intents and purposes, prison is punishment. Today, you did this, you will pay by staying locked up for however long that you do. Yeah. So is this not one of the things that ought to be looked at? If we're saying, because I don't think we can deal in that closed spot. You can't say, abolish the death penalty. All right, fine. What happens in this other place where we're saying, okay, then go to prison and stay there for life? The one happens to you, die, that's it.
Are we sure you're being rehabilitated?
Are we sure?
And actually, that is a big debate right now, because the Court of Appeal has given a decision to the effect that life imprisonment, by the way it is coined in our statute, is actually unconstitutional. Because life ideally should be determinate. Is it natural life? Because if it's natural life, then that is a death penalty. Because ideally you will never leave. You will die within the prison. But you should have a life sentence of 30, 40, 50 years. You should know what you're targeting for in order for you to say that this is the point where I can apply for parole. This is the point where someone can even assess whether you have reformed. So even the whole question around life sentences, one thing that we often forget is when we actually sentence people to death or life sentence, these people enter a system that will become their system for the rest of their lives. So we need to make it a humane place altogether. And for a lot of people who have visited prisons, you can tell that it's not humane. It's not fit for purpose. We haven't really rehabilitated our prisons since the colonial days. I've not heard any single member of parliament talk about we're building a new prison, because it's not a CDF issue. The ministry, the CS will
When was the last time a new prison was
My sister,
built in
we have
Kenya?
not built schools.
I don't know. No, but in fairness,
we are building schools.
In fairness, we are building schools. We are building hospitals. We are building schools and hospitals, but we have not heard anyone talk about we are building a prison. And that is why when you talk about persons with mental disability who are in the criminal justice system and they need to be housed somewhere, when you talk about Mathare has a bed capacity of, I think, 200 or 300 in the maximum side.
And it's a
already
hospital,
full.
not a jail.
It has both facilities.
Okay.
So it's already full. You don't have a new facility. So indeed, the system isn't fit for purpose today. So a lot of people ought not to be there. So there are whole conversations around decongestion of prisons because of petty offenders. But when you look at the most serious of the serious offenders, are they living in conditions that are humane? No, they are not.
You know this question of building a mental hospital, I could say it's also unconstitutional. It's discriminatory. Oh, yes. Why is it that every other disease known to mankind and Kenyans, there's a department for it in a hospital, a regular hospital? But when you have a mental illness, they have to put you away from everybody else and put you in a corner somewhere so everybody knows, yes. Can you think of the stigma associated with it? The moment you land there.
That's true.
Sometimes also for safety, I think, of the sick and those that are giving them care. Let me say something about the prisons. You know, actually, when NAC came to power in 2002,
yes,
and Muga was made the Minister for Home Affairs and the VP, he did initiate a number of reforms in the prison system.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
What happened is that these reforms were never carried through. After he left, and that's why we are. It's true indeed. It's intriguing that we have now built additional prisons since independence, and yet the population has continued to grow.
Yeah,
but
our prisons are not able to accommodate.
We have more judges, more magistrates, more prosecutors.
Yes, but what
same number of prisons.
But you know what I find interesting with Muchima, thank you for saying what you just said. why should we build more prisons? Should we not be decriminalizing our population? It's like saying, guys, we have this situation where, we are a criminal enterprise. So
it's inevitable
that we need to have.
City, it's inevitable.
You
have a criminal justice system that is increasing in terms of number of courts, number of judges. You definitely have more prisoners.
And it is also like that some of the people in this system themselves are criminals. We understand all that, okay? Have I said something wrong? What I'm saying is this. Do you know anything worse than being put in remand and then forgotten?
It's horrible.
Forgotten. Somebody put you there. They even forgot they put you there. 3 years down the line, you're still there waiting for a case which will never happen. It used to happen when we had detention.
Yeah.
The people who were detained, they were actually forgotten. And someone said, oh, you mean the guy still in prison? Why? Toy? Because they're not even sure what they put him in for in the first place.
Well, the system has changed significantly. I think right now.
Really?
Yes, it has, because of case management at the judiciary and also some systems that have been put in place, including the uadilifu system by the DPP. People are able to complain. People are able to report. People are able to say whether they've been forgotten within the system. So we have lesser numbers. I'm not saying everything is perfect, but we have lesser numbers of forgotten persons within remand. The unfortunate persons who are actually forgotten within remand are persons who have mental disability, because they themselves cannot move themselves to actually report. So they're a vulnerable group. But now, coming back to the question of the death penalty, I think for us as ICJ, we look at the question of death penalty as it has violated numerous rights. We look at it from the question of deprivation of life is wrong. Cruel, inhumane treatment by virtue of how it's executed is really wrong, because the cruelty of the execution itself, if you look at various reports around the way that the the way that the prison system actually responds when an execution is taking place, you will know it not only traumatizes the person who is about to be executed, but all the inmates, because you feel it and you hear it and you know you're next. So it actually traumatizes the various inmates who are inside.
True.
Yes.
But Julie, all those things that ICJ stands for, it stands for them because of the global nature of it, but not contextualizing. Half of the lifetime of ICJ in this country, nobody has been killed. Right?
Well, we were founded in 1959 and the last person executed was
ICJ Kenya.
Yes,
right?
1959.
So all those number of years that we've not seen any execution in this country tells you something. Now, how are we fixing the system? Because I hear, and I hear what you're saying. I hear the bill that Mheshimiwa you've taken to Parliament. It's a step in the right direction, but it's a step. But there are very many other steps to be taken. And what I am raising concern here with is I am not hearing the other steps being followed up with this. Suppose today, yes, Parliament passes this law. Yes, now today Kenya has abolished the death penalty. Yes. In fact, you even signed and ratified those other international protocols, and all those people who are still in prison, so they'll not be killed. So what happens to them? Yes, we are now going to commute you to life in prison. But how do we define life in prison? How are we addressing all those other issues? That is my concern. Because the death penalty itself in this country, we can just remove that issue, the word death penalty. We can remove it from the mandatory death penalty for judicial officers. They don't have to look at it. But have we sorted the issue?
I think
in Kenya, the challenge that we have with the human rights of people who enter the criminal justice system has not been addressed.
I think it's one step. The criminal justice system is quite complex. I don't think we can have a silver bullet for anything. So I think, first of all, abolishing the death penalty will be one step. Qualifying what is life will be another step. Instituting the parole board to look at the people who are in there. And they're not actually just limited to people on life. Parole is actually supposed to be an exhaustive process for anyone who has a long sentence. We'll ensure that people can actually have opportunities to leave the system if they have reformed. When you look at other countries that have actually abolished the death penalty, they actually create systems to ensure that people who are serving long sentences get the opportunity to leave, but people who are not reformed get an opportunity to stay and actually get reformed. So it works both ways. It's not that everyone will be leaving, but it will be a very just and humane way to process people's entry into society. When you look at the other systems that need to be funded, we've talked about the underfunding of the criminal justice system. It's very important to talk about it. We need to fund the criminal justice system. We need to have more advocates, more judges, more magistrates, prosecutors, more trained prison officers. It's a whole ecosystem. So you can't say there's one silver bullet to fixing it, but we will move an inch further if we do abolish the death penalty.
You do know that the criminal justice system won't get as much money as they want, so long as Parliament decides who is giving the money.
I think that he should.
That's a good challenge. It's a good challenge. We shall take it up.
In what stage is your bill up here?
Well, the bill has gone through the first reading. Is presently before the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, the JLAC, for processing readiness for the second reading. In other words, it's being subjected to public participation shortly. Yes, and then the committee will do a report to accompany the bill at the second reading stage, where the MPs are going to debate it robustly before they take a vote.
Say it's voted on,
yes,
and MPs say yes to this bill. What should we see within a year?
I'm praying really that that is voted for and it is finally assented to for it to become law. It will bring out a lot of change in the way our system works. Yeah, I can tell you.
Are people who are on death row going to be released?
No, there's always the issue of what time it's coming into effect. The transitional clauses. Okay.
I think on the question of release, before we leave it at that, because I think that would be a very alarming way to leave it. Once the death penalty is abolished, the idea will be everyone would go through either a process of commutation or resentencing. But ideally, it wouldn't be that the prison gates are then opened, because certain procedures have to be followed. So it would be a bit organized, and the criminal justice system would organize itself around the new bill. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Julie, thank you very much. Julie Wayua Madeka is a program manager at ICJ Kenya. The Honorable Opiyo Wandayi is the minority leader of the National Assembly. They've been our guest this morning as we commemorate World Day Against the Death Penalty. It's the 21st World Day Against the Death Penalty. Happy Utamaduni Day. Thank you very much for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. Have a lovely day. We'll see you again tomorrow. It's now 10 a.m.
Spice up your life